Chapter 605. All 20 students were dumbfounded when they saw the feedback on their multifunctional watches. A 250-year-old star beast cub. It was equivalent to a level 5 super-evolved giant dragon. Even if all 20 of them transformed into giant dragons, they would not be able to defeat this star beast cub. Even Earth City, which had a planetary body, was nothing in front of this star beast cub. It could slap him back to his original form with just a tail. All the students looked at Mo Sure involuntarily. They thought that even the instructor would not be able to do anything in front of this star beast cub. After all, the star beast cub was equivalent to a level 5 super-evolved giant dragon. No matter how strong the instructor was, he was only a level 2 super-evolved giant dragon. There was a difference of 3 levels. How could they fight? Also, they could not turn around and run when they encountered a star beast cub. Because if they ran, it would be equivalent to showing weakness. The star beast cub would chase after them like a dog. Then it would be over. They had never encountered such a situation before. No matter how strong the star beast cub they encountered before was, there was always an instructor behind them. They did not need to panic at all. But this time they were really panicking. However, when they looked at Mo Sure, they only saw Mo Sure say to them indifferently, "Don't worry. Wait here." The next moment they flew toward the star beast cub. They did not even have time to shout. Soon, the instructor had already flown out of their perception range. They could only hear a huge sound coming from that direction, as if a meteorite had fallen to the ground. Then there was a huge shockwave that caused the thick fog to tumble. They were also sent flying for about 5 kilometers by this huge shockwave. The next moment, everyone's expression changed drastically. Because in their perception, the star beast cub was flying toward them. Everyone hurriedly scattered in all directions. The next moment, a star beast cub that was more than 10 kilometers long and shaped like a giant koan streaked across the thick fog in front of them. Just looking at this giant koan made everyone's hair stand on end. In front of this giant koan they seemed so small. Even if they transformed into giant dragons that were thousands of meters long, they were not worth mentioning at all in front of this giant koan. However, this giant koan flew past them for a few seconds before it started to fall rapidly. Finally, it crashed to the ground. The mountain below collapsed with a loud bang. The forest below the mountain was crushed by the huge rocks and the giant leviathan's body, making cracking noises. All the students' faces were filled with shock. More than 10 seconds later, the giant leviathan below remained motionless. Only then did they realize that the giant leviathan wasn't flying towards them. Instead, he was smashed by a huge force. It was as if an invisible giant hand had strangled the giant koan and thrown it over. Moreover, the giant leviathan's entire body had been sealed in ice. When it landed on the ground, ice shards scattered everywhere. Just as they were all trembling in fear, the teacher's figure appeared in the thick fog in front of them. The teacher glanced at them and said, "Let's go." Then he turned around and flew forward. All the students suddenly realized something at this moment. All of them looked at their teacher in disbelief. Wait, this was an instant kill? Teacher actually killed a giant leviathan in seconds? A giant leviathan equivalent to a tier 5 super-evolved colossal dragon. Good heavens! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. He was so shocked that he couldn't react for a long time. That meant that the teacher was at least a tier 6 super-evolved colossal dragon. After reaching the level of a super-evolved colossal dragon, the gap between each tier was huge. Therefore, a tier 6 super-evolved colossal dragon could easily kill a creature equivalent to a tier 5 super-evolved colossal dragon. Hiss, teacher, he's a tier 6? Oh my god, what did this mean? It meant that the teacher's strength was even stronger than the Star Lord. It meant that on the entire Cloud Sea star, the teacher was undoubtedly the ceiling of combat strength. It meant that as long as the teacher was willing, he could completely take over the ruling rights of a planet. Why aren't you leaving? Are you going to stay here and feed the giant leviathan? Mo Sure's voice came from the thick fog in front of them. This pulled all the students back to reality. Then they were all extremely excited. They hurriedly followed the teacher's figure. With such a teacher, they didn't know how many good deeds they had done in their previous lives and how much merit they had accumulated. If their relatives and friends knew about this, they would be shocked. Imagining the shocked expressions on their relatives' and friends' faces, they felt a burst of joy in their hearts. However, the teacher seemed to have seen through their thoughts. Don't mention what happened today to anyone, including your parents and friends. As your teacher, I'm used to keeping a low profile and don't want to be disturbed by outsiders. If you mention it, don't blame me for kicking you out of Year 6 Class 3. At the end, Mo Sure's voice revealed a trace of sternness. At the same time, Longwei instantly spread out. In the hearts of all the students, A sense of competition that seemed to come from their bones suddenly rose up. Then they secretly made up their minds to not reveal a single word to anyone, because the teacher had never been so strict before. If they were to reveal it, with the long way that the teacher displayed, they were afraid that he might really kill them. A teacher killing a student was originally a big deal. But the teacher was an existence that surpassed the Star Lord, so it was a different story. Even the Star Lord couldn't do anything to him, so who would dare to punish him? And they weren't stupid. To be able to follow such a teacher as a student was something that they had cultivated for 8 lifetimes. How could they ruin this opportunity so easily? That afternoon they returned to the academy. Along the way the students were very respectful to Emosher and were no longer as casual as before. Even if Emosher was more easygoing and even joked with them, they didn't dare to be as casual as before. When they returned to the academy and walked on the tree-lined path in the academy, the students who passed by all covered their mouths and snickered. The students of Class 6 Class 3 naturally knew what they were laughing about. They were laughing at the students of Class 6 Class 3 for being in such a sorry state. Many of their clothes were like beggars and their hair was dirty and messy. They didn't look like students but like they had escaped from somewhere. Even some of the teachers were a little surprised when they saw the students of Class 6 Class 3 like this. "Teacher Emo, your class is..." Emosher waved his hand and said, "Let them go to the slums to experience life. Otherwise, if they think that they are students of Cloud Sea Academy, they will always be high and mighty and not down to earth. I'm afraid it will hurt a lot." Those teachers all gave Emosher a thumbs up. Teacher Emo is so thoughtful. Next semester let our students experience life. When the students of those classes heard this, their faces immediately darkened. As for the students of Class 6 Class 3, although their appearance was sloppy, they were all very proud and arrogant at this moment. When the final exam was in a few days, their Class 6 Class 3 would definitely surprise everyone. Chapter 606. The Dean summoned all the teachers for a meeting. When the other teachers arrived, the Dean only nodded to them as a greeting. However, when Emosher arrived, the Dean stood up and welcomed him. He said warmly, "Teacher Emo is here. Come and sit." This made the other teachers feel strange. The Dean had always been very calm. Even in the face of a landslide, his expression would not change. Why was he so enthusiastic when he saw Teacher Emo today? Of course they did not know that the Dean had guessed that Emosher was a super-evolved dragon. As for Emosher, who was also a super-evolved dragon, the Dean naturally had a higher opinion of him than the other teachers. After all the other teachers had arrived, the Dean started the meeting. The content of the meeting was about the final exam. "We have chosen to hold the final exam on the nearby Cloud Ridge planet." Cloud Ridge planet was a satellite of Cloud Sea planet. It was similar to the relationship between Earth and the Moon. Cloud Ridge planet was not big and it had not been developed before. It was completely untouched. The entire surface of Cloud Ridge planet was covered by plants. There were hundreds of millions of star beast cubs on Cloud Ridge planet. Occasionally, some schools would hold tests or exams here. The Dean said, "For this final exam, every student in every class will enter Cloud Ridge planet to hunt star beast cubs. In the end, we will choose the 20 students with the highest level and the highest number of star beast cubs to participate in the 100-star competition during the summer break." The so-called 100-star competition was a competition where each planet would send out 20 of their strongest students to participate in the competition. It was held every 4 years. It was the most important competition for these planets. Logically speaking, the schools of Cloud Sea planet should compete to choose the 20 most outstanding students. However, the Ocean of Clouds Academy had the ability to monopolize all 20 of them. Because according to the experience of previous years, the 20 spots would be taken by Cloud Sea Academy in the end. Therefore, after some discussion, they decided that there was no need to go through so much trouble to hold the internal competition of Cloud Sea planet. That would be a waste of time and dragon power. It was better to just give all the spots to Cloud Sea Academy. The Dean continued to speak and finally asked all 42 teachers, "Does anyone have any opinions or suggestions? Feel free to voice them out." The teachers all shook their heads. The Dean smiled and asked Emosher, "Teacher Emo, do you have anything to say?" All the instructors were shocked once again. It seemed like the Dean valued Instructor Emo a lot. What kind of background did he have? They didn't believe that Instructor Emo was that strong. To be valued by the Dean, one had to be at least at the super-evolved dragon level. Could this Instructor Emo be a super-evolved dragon? What a joke. Emosher smiled and replied, "That's right. I think that if it's fair, all 20 slots will be given to us." That way we won't have to waste time fighting for a spot. As soon as this was said, there was a moment of silence. Wasn't Instructor Mo too arrogant? Even if the dean thinks highly of you, you don't have to be so arrogant. Did he have any respect for the other instructors? This was especially true for the mentors of the graduating classes. They were all enraged. Instructor Mo, don't you think you're exaggerating? Instructor Mo, how long have you been here? You don't know the strength of the other classes. We don't blame you. But by saying such big words, you are not giving face to the other teachers of the other classes. Especially the teacher of Year 1 Class 0, Yu Yenran, who had a fiery temper. She slammed the table and stood up. Instructor Mo, don't think that just because you're leading a graduating class, the students in your class are stronger than the first years. Lei Ren from our class is strong enough to kill anyone in your class. Hee hee, Emosher laughed. He sensed Lei Ren passing by the conference room. He immediately shouted, Lei Ren, come in. The conference room door was pushed open and Lei Ren walked in. When all the instructors saw Lei Ren, they couldn't help but size him up carefully. Yu Yenran had always been high profile. Such a genius from their class could actually challenge someone who was 5 ranks higher than him in the first year. Yu Yenran naturally wanted to publicize this matter. So much so that the entire academy already knew about Lei Ren. It wouldn't be a problem for this guy to challenge those 6th years. A mentor said, among the 20 spots at least one of them should be Lei Ren. Yeah, he's the only one in our academy who can challenge opponents who are 5 ranks higher. I think that if it's really fair, Lei Ren should be the one who gets a spot without having to compete. Recently there had been news about the final exam. Lei Ren had also heard some of it. Now that he heard these mentors say this and saw that they seemed to be targeting Emosher, he shook his head. No. You guys think too highly of me. Instructor Mo's students are far from what I can compare to. I think the top 20 should all be in Instructor Mo's class. Just give it to them directly and save time. The other mentors were stunned when they heard this. Especially Yu Yenran, who was dumbfounded. Lei Ren was usually very arrogant in the class. Not only in the class, even in the entire academy he wasn't afraid of the 6th years at all. After all, his strength was there. Many 6th years had to take a detour when they saw him. Why was he so afraid when he saw Emosher? Yu Yenran slapped Lei Ren. Why are you so cowardly? How is this the usual you? Lei Ren laughed dryly and said, actually, my abilities were all taught by Instructor Mo before I entered the academy. Without him, I wouldn't be who I am today. I was just a good-for-nothing playboy before and he could teach me like this. Most of the students in the 3rd class are geniuses. Instructor Mo has taught them for so long. Their strength must have improved by leaps and bounds. So I'm not a coward. I know my own name. By the way, Dean, can I transfer directly to Instructor Mo's class? As soon as this remark came out, everyone present looked at each other. Lei Ren was also taught by Instructor Mo? The Dean and Yu Yenran had already known this. Yu Yenran snorted coldly. Lei Ren, you little traitor. Don't say that you are a student of our class in the future. Lei Ren was not afraid of Yu Yenran at all. Instead, he said directly to the Dean, Dean, you see, Instructor Yu doesn't want me anymore. I'm homeless. Please be merciful and let me transfer directly to the 3rd class of the 6th year. Yu Yenran was so angry that she gritted her teeth. The Dean also shook his head and smiled bitterly. Although your strength is good, you still lack various theoretical knowledge. You have to start learning from the 1st grade. And don't you live with Instructor Mo? You can learn from him after school in the afternoon. Chapter 607. Emosher said arrogantly in the meeting room that they should be given to Class 6 to 3. Of course, the Dean couldn't really give them to Class 6 to 3. The participants had to be selected through the Academy's final exam. Following that, every class in the Academy entered a state of intense preparation. Especially the 6th grade. They had studied for nearly 60 years and had experienced all kinds of theoretical knowledge and practice many times. In addition, their average level was the highest among all the grades, so theoretically, they had the highest chance of getting a place. Therefore, their preparation work was even more intense. Their homeroom teacher basically spent the rest of his time in class these few days, other than eating and sleeping time. He told the students what to pay attention to, explained the knowledge of all kinds of star beast cubs, and explained all kinds of high-end combat techniques. The busiest classes were Class 6 to 1 and Class 6 to 2. Class 6 to 1 was an elite class and Class 6 to 2 was not far behind. In the final exam every year, the results of these 2 classes were in the top 3. The teachers of these 2 classes were far more serious and responsible than the teachers of the other classes. They couldn't wait to eat and live with the students. In the entire academy there was only one class. There was not the slightest bit of tension before the exam. Mo sure still walked around the classroom every day and let the students prepare for the exam. When he had nothing to do, he would stay in the library and read electronic books to understand everything about the 10,000 Dragon Star region. When it was time, he would get off work on time and not stay for a minute longer. Every time at 5 p.m., after he got off work and left, the other homeroom teachers would always show a trace of disdain. This kind of teacher did not have a trace of seriousness and responsibility. When teacher Jean Ponta was here, class 6 to 3 was always first in the grade. In terms of results, discipline, and other aspects, no one could find any fault with them. But now, teacher Mo? It was said that other than allowing the students to rise by one level, he was practically useless in other aspects. He couldn't teach theoretical knowledge and he didn't know about the various skills. He came to the academy as a complete loser. He even said that all the spots should be given to his class. What a joke. If they were given to his class, it would be the biggest joke. Just like that, 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. 3 days later, more than 800 students in the academy boarded a giant ship that was more than 10,000 meters long and flew to Cloud Billow Star. The other academies didn't have such a giant ship. In the entire Cloud Sea Star, only the Cloud Sea Academy had a single one. Even though it was a 10,000-meter long giant ship, it was still extremely fast. In just over half an hour, they arrived at the Cloud Ridge Star. The captain chose a slightly flatter place and stopped. Then he set up a protective shield within a radius of 50 kilometers. In this way, the area within a radius of 50 kilometers around the giant ship was an absolute safe zone. Everyone can rest and exercise here. However, for these students, there was no opportunity to move at all. As soon as the giant ship landed, it meant that the examination had begun. They had to make the best use of their time and kill as many star beasts as possible within 3 days. Every student was equipped with a tracking device and a camera. If they were in danger, the academy's instructors could quickly rush to their location. Every teacher returned to their own rooms and watched their students in front of the monitor. At the same time, there was a huge screen in the control room. On it were real-time images taken by the cameras carried by all the students. If any student was in danger, the computer would immediately analyze it and then magnify the image of the student in danger and display it. Mo sure scanned with his dragon's will. Within a radius of 1,000 kilometers, there weren't any strong star beasts. The strongest one was only 170 years old, which was equivalent to a rank 7 evolved giant dragon. For his students, any one of them could take on these star beasts alone. Only Tuching was able to do so because Mo sure had been teaching him how to comprehend the formation of a planet and hadn't taught him any skills. However, he was able to use Mount Tai's crushing down every time. Therefore, he seemed to be in a sorry state. When he encountered a star beast cub, he would often fight it with his bare hands. Moreover, he didn't use any moves or skills. It was completely a tortoise's fist. However, because he had a planet body, he was extremely strong. When facing a star beast cub that was 3 or 5 levels higher than him, he only needed one punch to knock it to the ground. As the screen was divided into 800 small panels, it displayed the images of 800 students. Therefore, the dean and the others hadn't noticed this yet. At this moment, Mo sure didn't pay attention to this. Instead, he carried a pot of tea and went to the top of the giant ship. He sat on the deck, enjoying the breeze, drinking tea and admiring the scenery of Cloud Ridge Planet. The biggest characteristic of this place was one word: green. Looking around, the entire surface was covered in green plants. The air was naturally fresh. If there weren't outsiders, he would have let them out to enjoy the beautiful scenery together. At the same time, in the main control room, after the dean and the leaders of the academies confirmed that everything was on track, they said, "Show me the images of the students of class 6 to 3. Others didn't know, but he knew. Instructor Mo of class 6 to 3 was a super-evolved giant dragon. Since he dared to say that all the slots should belong to class 6 to 3, there must be something special about him." Soon, the 20 students of class 6 to 3 were magnified and displayed on the big screen. When all the instructors saw the students of class 6 to 3 on the big screen, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. The golden sword was an extremely sharp energy sword. Wherever it passed, it was basically insta-killed. A 110-year star beast cub, insta-killed. A 150-year star beast cub, insta-killed. A 170-year star beast cub, insta-killed. It wasn't just the golden sword. The other students might not be able to insta-kill them, but it was very easy for them to deal with these star beast cubs. All kinds of moves and skills emerged one after another. It was dazzling. Moreover, the recruitment of these students basically didn't have any fancy moves. They were usually the simplest and most practical. Compared to the students of class 6 to 3, the other students were like a group of babies who had just learned to walk. In class 6 to 3, the only student who looked to be in a sorry state was Earth City. However, the instructors didn't have much hope for him. He was famous for being at the bottom of the rankings in the academy. Since the first year, he hadn't advanced by one rank and hadn't learned a skill of the corresponding rank. However, just as they casually scanned the image of Earth City, their gazes froze. The casual expressions on their faces turned into extreme shock. Chapter 608. When the mentor's eyes casually scanned through the image of Earth City, they were all suddenly nailed to the frame of Earth City. The dean's eyes were also fixed on the image of Earth City. Then he hurriedly said, "Zoom in, zoom in, zoom in on this student." Soon, the image of Earth City appeared in the center of the screen, completely covering the other images. On the screen, Earth City was in a sorry state. There were no skills or energy weapons. When a pangolin rampaged, breaking dozens of giant trees and pouncing towards him, Chu Feng was stunned. He looked left and right but couldn't find any place to hide. Left with no other choice, he could only awkwardly leap high into the air. When the pangolin beast came under him, he directly used his fist to smash the pangolin beast's head that was as big as a small mountain. Bang! The pangolin's huge head was suddenly smashed to the ground. Boom! The ground below had sunk more than 10 meters deep. It formed a huge pit with a radius of about 5 kilometers. At the same time, poof! The pangolin's head directly exploded. Blood splattered everywhere. The entire huge pit was suddenly covered with thick and sticky flesh and brain matter. All the mentors who saw this scene were so shocked that they couldn't say a word for a long time. Until a moment later, a mentor opened his mouth and said, "This is too strong. Just relying on physical strength he can kill a pangolin that is 5 levels higher. This guy is too strong." The pangolin's body is very hard, it can often easily smash through a mountain. Its head is also very hard. Often many evolved giant dragons use energy weapons to form weapons, but it is difficult to penetrate the scales on its head. But this Earth City blew it up with one punch. Tsk, this guy is really too shocking. At this time Earth City in the image jumped out of the huge pit of flesh and blood. His whole body was blood red. Maybe it was the smell of blood that attracted other star beast cubs. Soon, another hammerhead beast ran over. This was also a strength type and defense type star beast cub. Earth City seemed to be chased to the point where he couldn't hide. And because the hammerhead beast was too fast, he didn't even have the chance to jump up this time. He could only turn back, bite the bullet and extend his right fist. With his bare fists, he directly collided with the hammerhead beast's huge head. The hammerhead beast's head was about 100 meters tall and 500 meters wide. With his human body, it looked like a mosquito trying to hold up the head of an elephant. However, under such circumstances, the hammerhead beast was blasted more than 10 kilometers away by his attack. After landing on the ground, his head, which was almost invulnerable, actually cracked inch by inch. In the next moment it exploded. One had to know that this hammerhead beast had reached 170 years of age, which was equivalent to a rank 7 giant dragon. In other words, Tuching Earth City crossed the 6th order punch and killed the hammerhead beast. This was simply too shocking. Apart from the dean, all the other instructors present were filled with shock. None of these instructors could defeat an enemy that was 6 levels higher than them. It was impossible for him to even take a single blow head-on, let alone kill him with a single blow. Next, they saw that in just half an hour, this guy basically circled one small beast at a time. It was simply unstoppable. It's hard to imagine how Tuching Earth City can become so strong. Previously, he had always been at the bottom of the 6th years. Now he is like the first echelon of the 6th years. He, Golden Sword, Kongming, and the others are the top of the 6th years. Yes, I think so. Actually, they did not know that Tuching Earth City was not in the first echelon. Instead, he was the strongest existence among all the 6th years. An existence that could instantly kill hundreds of dragon bandits. Obviously, Tuching Earth City only changed like this after Instructor Mo took over. In the past 50 years he has never displayed such strength. His strength has not changed at all for more than 50 years. Instructor Mo has only taken over for half a semester, and he has gone from the bottom of the entire academy to the first echelon in one fell swoop. This is simply inconceivable. Not only him, all the other students in class 63 are ridiculously strong. They are more than 10 times stronger than when Instructor Jean was leading them. Everyone can fight 2 or 3 levels higher or even 3 or 4 levels higher. Simply terrifying. Now I'm beginning to believe what Instructor Mo said before. At this moment, what the dean was thinking about was the planetary body that Mo sure had mentioned before. He naturally knew about the planetary body. The planetary body was very strong, but it required time to comprehend. But it took too much time to comprehend. Often, dragons with planetary bodies would die of old age before they could comprehend anything. Only 1 in 10,000 could truly achieve a planetary body. That would require thousands or even tens of thousands of years to comprehend. But after Mo sure took over Class 63, it had only been 3 months, and Tuching Earth City had already reached such a powerful level of strength. How did he do it? After the dean heard Mo sure say that Tuching Earth City was a planetary body, he was thinking about how to provide better conditions for Tuching Earth City and how to think of a better way for him to comprehend. But in the past 3 months he could not think of any substantial help. But he did not expect that in just 3 months, Mo sure would help Tuching Earth City become so powerful. From the looks of it, he was probably invincible below the super-evolved dragon. This made him even more surprised by Mo sure. How did he do it? He used his perception to investigate. At this moment, Mo sure was leisurely drinking tea on the deck. The other instructors were in their respective rooms, nervously staring at the screen. Comparing the two, it was obvious who was better. Soon it was the second day. The instructors of the academy all came to the main control room early the next morning, because they wanted to see the results of the other students. Especially the instructors of Class 61 and Class 62, their hearts were filled with excitement, and their footsteps were exceptionally light. The results of the students in their 2 classes were very outstanding. Basically, every student had killed at least 10 Star Beast cubs. According to the historical exam results, being able to kill so many Star Beast cubs on the first day was already very good. However, when they came to the central control room, they saw that the big screen did not show the other students. Only 20 students were shown. They were all students of Class 63. Tuching Earth City, 57, Golden Sword, 55, Ice Beauty, 53, Shui Bolan, 49, Mu Wanqing, 48, Kong Ming, 48. The student with the least number had reached 39. The best student had 15 more than the students in their 2 classes. This caused the 2 instructors of Class 61 and Class 62 to be stunned. At this moment, the conversation of a few leaders could be heard. They killed too quickly. There were not many Star Beast cubs around for them to kill, so they could only look around. That's right. They wasted all their time on traveling and searching for Star Beast cubs. Otherwise, I'm afraid that each of them would have killed over 100 Star Beasts today. The 2 instructors of Class 61 and Class 62 were petrified. Chapter 609. When the teacher in charge of Class 6-1 and Class 6-2 heard the words of the leaders, they were petrified. Class 6-3 was too much of a beast, right? How could their combat power be so strong? Could it be that they were only killing low-level Star Beasts? Thinking of this, there was still a glimmer of hope in their hearts. Then they continued to walk inside. When they came to the front of the big screen and saw the performance of the students on the screen, the 2 of them were petrified again. On the big screen, most of the students in Class 6-3 were on their way to find Star Beast cubs. There were only 4 of them. One of them was Golden Sword and the other was Tuching. Golden Sword condensed a Golden Sword aura in his right hand and instantly swept past the side of a 170-year-old Star Beast cub. Hiss! The Star Beast cub's head was directly cut in half. It was killed on the spot. Tuching was even more direct. Facing a 150-year-old Star Beast cub, he actually used his fist to fight against the Star Beast cub's teeth. When the Star Beast cub opened its huge mouth and bit down on him, he punched out. Crack! The Star Beast cub's sharp teeth were directly broken. At the same time, this punch also exploded the Star Beast cub's entire head. Hiss! When the teacher in charge of Class 6-1 and Class 6-2 saw this, both of them gasped in shock. Most of the students in their 2 classes would probably take a detour when facing a 150-year-old Star Beast cub. Even if there was someone who could defeat a 150-year-old Star Beast cub, it would take a while. Who would be like this guy, exploding it with 1 punch? He was simply an animal. The dean next to them was still smiling and asking, "Teachers, what do you think of this guy?" The teacher in charge of Class 6-1 and Class 6-2 looked at each other and could only smile awkwardly. Very strong. To be able to kill a 150-year-old Star Beast cub with his bare hands, he is indeed very strong. The dean laughed out loud. You didn't see the scene of him killing a 170-year-old Star Beast cub with 1 punch. The 2 teachers were petrified on the spot for the 3rd time. In their 2 classes, none of them could kill a 170-year-old star beast cub. This guy killed it with 1 punch? Is this for real? At this moment, the dean gave them another heavy blow. Oh, it's not just him. That golden sword, Shui Bolan, and Ice Beauty basically killed all the 170-year-old star beasts they encountered. The 2 instructors were numb. You look at me, I look at you. Finally, they looked at the dean at the same time. Then what about the others? The president shook his head. Only then did the 2 instructors' expressions look a little better. The headmaster continued, the others haven't encountered a 170-year-old astral beast cub yet. We only saw them instantly kill a 160-year-old star beast cub. Poof, poof, invisibly 2 sounds of blood spurting could be heard. If he could instantly kill a 170-year-old, then even if he couldn't instantly kill a 160-year-old, it shouldn't be a problem. This completely destroyed their last bit of hope. That instructor Mo, how exactly does he teach his students? The instructor of class 6-1 said subconsciously. The dean said, I really don't know about that. But take a look at Lei Ren from class 0. As the dean spoke, he asked the instructor beside him to bring up Lei Ren's image. Lei Renjing encountered a 160-year-old star beast cub. His right arm transformed into a dragon claw with lightning coiling around its tip. In the next moment he passed by the 160-year-old star beast cub. Rip. The 200-meter-long body of the 160-year-old astral beast cub was instantly torn in half. There wasn't even a trace of self-recovery. When the instructors of class 6-1 and class 6-2 saw this, they revealed looks of admiration. Lei Ren is a genius. It's not surprising that he can kill a level 160 astral beast cub. The dean smiled. Lei Ren was also taught by instructor Mo. When the instructors of class 6-1 and class 6-2 heard this, their eyes dimmed. The dean continued, and according to my understanding, before Lei Ren came to our academy, although he was taught in our academy but in reality he wasn't very strong. He was known as the #1 spoiled brat within 1,000 kilometers. You can imagine how weak his combat strength is. Later, when school started, he took a half-semester leave. In fact, it was instructor Mo who brought him to special training. After the special training, Lei Ren reached the point where he could fight someone 5 grades above him. Also, according to instructor Yu, this isn't Lei Ren's full strength. If Lei Ren used his full strength, he might be able to reach the level of a super-evolved dragon. When they heard the dean's words, it wasn't just the instructors of class 6-1 and class 6-2. All the higher-ups of the academy sucked in a breath of cold air. In other words, a level 2 evolved dragon could defeat a level 10 evolved dragon? Other than the dean, all the instructors weren't as strong as Lei Ren? How did instructor Mo teach his students? This was simply like turning stone into gold. Moreover, to be able to bring Earth City, the last place, to such a state, was completely turning something rotten into something miraculous. This was simply too inconceivable. Actually, they didn't know that with Lei Ren's current strength, it was impossible for him to defeat a level 10 evolved dragon. That was just an exaggeration that had been passed around. Lei Ren's true strength was only able to fight someone 5 grades above him. If he could truly master the second transformation of the Thunder Dragon 9 transformations, then he would truly be invincible under the super-evolved dragon. However, these instructors were already shocked. Dean, after instructor Jean left, we randomly found someone to replace him. I didn't expect to find a god-level instructor. The dean also sighed. I didn't expect it either. As he spoke, his consciousness probed out again. He found that Mo Sure had actually fallen asleep while leaning against the back of the chair. And his shiny saliva was flowing down. What kind of dragon was this? Originally, if it continued like this, there would be no problem for class 6-3 to take the top 20 places. But on the last day of the exam, there was still a problem. On the big screen, a student from class 5-5 who was hunting star beasts suddenly disappeared. The screen was filled with snowflakes. The tracker also failed. Their instructors hurriedly chased him to the location where he disappeared, but they couldn't find any clues. Then a student from class 5-2 also disappeared. Then class 6-1. Seeing this, the dean hurriedly ordered the instructors to order the students to withdraw immediately. However, after their orders were issued, they didn't receive any response. Then all the screens turned into snowflakes. All the students couldn't be contacted. Those instructors hurriedly searched everywhere. In the end, only 630 of the 800 students were found. There were still 170 students who were completely uncontactable. This included the 20 people from class 6-3. The atmosphere in the entire academy suddenly became tense. After the dean counted all the students with a calm face, he found that the other classes had lost contact with a few students. And class 6 to 3 had lost contact with the entire class. This caused everyone to be extremely surprised. Chapter 6:10. There were 170 students missing in the entire academy. But the missing students from the other classes seemed to be random. There was no pattern. 3 or 4, 4 or 5, or 7 or 8 students from each class were missing. Only the students from class 6 to 3 were missing. This caused all the instructors to scratch their heads in confusion. The dean hurriedly sent out dozens of aircrafts and hundreds of drones to search the area with the missing students as the center. At the same time, the dean thought of Emosher and hurried over to ask for Emosher's opinion. Emosher said, "It seems that a spatial dragon took them all away. Could there be dragon bandits hiding in this forest?" The dean asked. Emosher nodded. "Judging from the situation just now, it is indeed possible. And they dared to kidnap those students in front of so many instructors. I think these dragon bandits are not ordinary." The dean was furious. "If they dare to hurt my students, I will destroy all of them." Then the dean thought of something and asked Emosher, "Why were only a few students from the other classes taken away, but your entire class 6 to 3 class was taken away?" Emosher smiled. "These little brats were willing." "What? Willing?" The dean was puzzled. Ordinary students couldn't escape even if they wanted to, but the students of class 6 to 3 were willing to be taken away? Emosher replied, "Yes, when they were about to kidnap 3 of the students, Kongming used his spatial ability to take the rest of the students and chase after them." "What should we do?" The dean's face was full of anxiety. Even if he was a super-evolved dragon, if something happened to so many students, he couldn't escape the blame. Emosher waved his hand. "Dean, don't be impatient. Those dragon bandits took my students away. They should be the ones who should be afraid." The dean understood what Emosher meant. The students of class 6 to 3 were powerful, and those dragon bandits might not be able to defeat them. But they were still students after all and had never experienced any fighting. How could they be a match for those ruthless dragon bandits? "Even so, we still have to find them as soon as possible," the dean said. Emosher smiled. "Don't worry, they will be back soon." Emosher's confidence was, of course, well-founded. If the dragon bandits had not taken away everyone in class 6 to 3, Emosher might have been a little worried. However, after snatching away everyone from class 6 to 3, Emosher wasn't worried at all. The students of class 6 to 3 had fought the dragon bandits with real swords and spears. After training in the Misty Mountains, they were already familiar with the methods of the dragon bandits and how ruthless they were. And their attacks on the dragon bandits were absolutely ruthless. Especially Earth City, one person could destroy hundreds and thousands of dragon bandits. Therefore, there was nothing to worry about. However, even though Emosher said so, the dean didn't dare to do nothing. He continued to expand the search area, searching for traces of the students. However, there was no news at all. This made all the students and instructors in the academy extremely anxious. At the same time, in a place with picturesque hills and clear waters and smoke rising in spirals, the 170 students suddenly appeared at the same time. Along with them were 2 spatial element dragon bandits. As soon as these students appeared, more than 100 dragon bandits rushed out around them. These dragon bandits all looked ferocious and had all sorts of strange appearances. These students had never seen such a scene before. Some of the more timid ones fell to the ground in fright. Even the bolder ones retreated at this time. Seeing this, the 100 dragon bandits all laughed. "They are all little bastards who have never seen the world. Look at that one, he is so scared that he peed himself, ha." The leader of the bandits also laughed when he saw this. "A few days ago, my master told me that the blood refinement technique needs to refine the blood of a giant dragon. Just one type of blood isn't enough, we have to gather the blood of all 5 elements, and the more the better. This is great, not only do we have the 5 elements but we also have the ice, poison, and even poison attributes." The spatial element dragon bandit pointed at Kongming and said, "Boss, that kid also has the spatial element. When I brought these students back, he brought a few of them with him." When the students present heard this, their expressions changed drastically. It seemed that these dragon bandits were not ordinary dragon bandits, but dragons of the demonic path. There was such a giant dragon in the entire 10,000 Dragon Star Zone. They felt that ordinary cultivation was too slow, so they took all kinds of shortcuts. Some of them sacrificed their own lifespan to cultivate, while others sacrificed the lives of other giant dragons to cultivate. The former was looked down upon by others and was called the demonic path. The latter was despised by 10,000 dragons. Once the entire 10,000 dragon star zone knew that there was a demonic dragon, they would gang up and attack it. Legend had it that the demonic dragons were all vicious and merciless, far from what the dragon bandits could compare to. The dragon bandits only wanted to kill dragons and steal their treasures. And these demonic dragons might not kill you in one go in order to cultivate. Instead, he's raising you so that he can cultivate and suck your blood every day. This was definitely a fate worse than death. Therefore, when they heard the bandit leader's words, many students were already trembling with fear and trepidation. They had lived in an ivory tower since they were young. Even when they went out to train, they had teachers by their side to protect them. They had never faced such a situation before. However, just as these students were trembling with fear, a ray of golden sword chi was instantly activated. Whoosh 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 whoosh. In a short 3 seconds, 5 rays of sword chi pierced through the heads of 5 dragon bandits. Not only that, dozens of icicles pierced through the heads of 3 dragon bandits. This change happened so suddenly that even the dragon bandits could not react in time. The students of class 6 to 3 retaliated. Lei Ren also retaliated with them. He had also killed dragon bandits with Mo-Shur before. Lightning energy was released and instantly electrocuted 4 or 5 dragon bandits. In just 5 seconds, more than 40 dragon bandits had already fallen to the ground. The dragon bandits were all shocked and hurriedly wanted to fight. But soon the surrounding plants wrapped around their limbs like giant pythons. At the same time, a thick layer of ice formed on all the dragon bandits' bodies. The 2 layers of control made it impossible for them to fight back in a short time. Whoosh 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 whoosh. In another 5 seconds, more than 40 dragon bandits had fallen to the ground. Only now did the dragon bandits completely break free from the control. However, in just 10 seconds, more than half of the dragon bandits had been killed. This made the bandit leader very angry. He had thought that today would be a great harvest, but he did not expect that the ones he collected were all life-threatening ghosts. He really could not understand why these students were different from other students. He had seen many students on other planets, and those students were all so scared in front of him that they did not even dare to fart. Why the hell are these students so aggressive the moment they come up? Chapter 6:11. F***CK kill him? The bandit leader was infuriated by the sudden change. With an angry roar, a beam of energy blasted towards Lei Ren. However, Lei Ren was paying attention to him. With a light leap he dodged the energy. Then he blasted towards the other dragon bandits. For a moment these dragon bandits were caught off guard. As for the remaining 150 students, they were all dumbfounded by what they saw. How could these students from class 6 to 3 be so valiant? They were even more valiant than the dragon bandits. Previously, some of them were not convinced of class 6 to 3. However, at this moment they were completely convinced. Especially for the 2 guys Golden Sword and Tuching Earth City, they are even more admirable. One of them was a sword and the other was a small dragon bandit. Moreover, not only was Golden Sword's attack sharp, but his judgment and grasp of the situation was also quite accurate. He knew that among these dragon bandits, the most difficult one to deal with was the spatial attribute dragon bandit. With him around, these students would be easily controlled by his spatial attribute. It would be difficult for them to resist. Therefore, Golden Sword's first target was the spatial attribute dragon bandit. He stabbed him in half with one sword. The other was a small dragon bandit with one punch. The most terrifying one was Earth City. Although he did not seem to have any moves or skills, he just swung his fists and went up to fight. But none of the dragon bandits could withstand one punch from him. And basically, no matter where the punch landed, a huge hole would be blasted in that area. One had to know that the bodies of giant dragons were extremely tough. Even those specially forged swords would not be able to break through their defenses if they were not imbued with energy. Now, Earth City was actually able to destroy the bodies of these dragon bandits with one punch with just his physical strength. How strong must he be? Soon, under the encouragement of the 20 students from class 6 to 3, the other 150 students also stood up to resist. Naturally, they could not be as strong as the students from class 6 to 3. However, the giant dragon's self-healing ability was extremely strong. As long as you dared to let go of your hand, you would be able to overwhelm your opponent in terms of momentum. Those dragon bandits might seem very ferocious on a daily basis. But at this moment, they did not expect that these students would not only resist, but also resist so fiercely. For a moment they panicked. Especially when they saw the students from class 6 to 3 kill the dragon bandits in one move, they panicked even more. Therefore they immediately wanted to scatter and flee. However, they were slowed down by Mu Wanqing's control skill and the Ice Beauty's control skill. He was even slowed down by Kong Ming's control skill. After a few rounds of this, none of them were able to escape. In the end, a total of 133 dragon bandits were wiped out. Looking at the scattered corpses of the dragon bandits, the students from the other classes felt disgusted. Their stomachs were churning and they all bent over to vomit. Only the students of class 6 to 3, after their previous experience, were still a little disgusted by these things, but not to the point of vomiting. Even Mu Wanqing, who was usually the most timid, did not have any intention of vomiting at this moment. When the students from the other classes saw how valiant the students from class 6 to 3 were, their admiration for class 6 to 3 increased by a few points. Moreover, they were also in awe of the teacher in charge of class 6 to 3. Before Instructor Mo came, although class 6 to 3 was also very strong, they were far from reaching this level. Now, Teacher Mo had only been here for 2 months, and class 6 to 3 was simply inhumanly strong. It was certain that even if the mentors of the academy were here, they would not be able to do better. Following that, these students rested for about 10 minutes. Then they saw a drone in the distance searching in this direction. A moment later it found these students. At the same time, in the giant ship, the mentors and a few higher-ups of the academy saw the students captured by the drone through the big screen. Those students were all covered in blood, which shocked the mentors. However, they saw that the students were at least still standing. If they could stand, their lives would not be in danger. This made the mentors heave a sigh of relief. At the same time, they saw more than 100 corpses lying around these students. They were even more shocked. Then the dean hurriedly sent people to bring these students back. They asked these students about the situation. When they heard that the students of class 6 to 3 had launched a counterattack, they were all shocked by the students of class 6 to 3. Originally, it was already quite shocking that more than 100 students had defeated more than 100 dragon bandits. Now, the students of class 6 to 3 had already launched a counterattack while the students of the other classes were still in shock. In the end, half of these more than 100 dragon bandits were killed by the students of class 6 to 3. This shocked the mentors even more. They asked themselves, even if they encountered such a thing, it was very likely that they would not be able to achieve such a status. There were also some mentors who fantasized that if their students encountered such a thing and killed the enemies together, their students would be able to obtain a spot to participate in the 100-star tournament. However, even their students shook their heads. Compared to the students of class 6 to 3, they were far inferior. They had saved their lives. How could they dare to snatch their spot? Moreover, even if they snatched that spot, what could they do when the time came? With their strength, they would only be beaten up if they went up. Only the students of class 6 to 3 could shine on such a stage and spread the name of the Cloud Sea Academy. In the end, the dean decided to award the Cloud Sea Medal to these 178 students. This kind of medal was usually only given out a few spots a year, but this time, 170 medals were given out at once. At the same time, other than the Cloud Sea Medal, the students of class 6 to 3 were also given the highest hero medal in the academy. One had to know that in the academy's tens of thousands of years of history, there were not many students who could obtain such a hero medal. Basically, it was obtained by the mentors. This time, 20 medals were given out at once. This was really an eye-opener. As for the 20 spots to participate in the tournament, they were naturally taken up by the students of class 6 to 3. However, the dean decided to add a substitute spot at the last minute. And this substitute spot was given to Lei Ren, who was as brave and fierce as the students of class 6 to 3 during the battle. This decision made Yu Yanran very excited. She patted Lei Ren's shoulder and praised him. "Kid, you've grown up." Lei Ren shook his head. No, it's because you taught me well." Hearing this flattery, Yu Yanran immediately felt good. "Of course." Lei Ren shook his head again. "I'm talking about Mentor Mo." Yu Yanran's pretty face immediately darkened. Chapter 6:12. Those students killed more than 130 dragon bandits. Among them, there were more than 20 people in class 6 to 3, and they killed more than 60 dragon bandits. This increased Mo Shi's dragon slaying points by more than 60. Dragon slaying points, 1771000. Mo Shi looked at the dragon slaying points, but he was still not satisfied. If there were more of his students among these students, wouldn't he be able to get more dragon slaying points today? This gave birth to an idea. The students from other classes already knew how good his students were, and they all wanted to come to class 6 to 3. But they were limited by the school's rules, so they didn't have the chance. But wasn't the summer vacation coming soon? He could set up a summer tutoring class. As long as he tutored these students for more than 10 days, any dragon slaying points they killed in the future would be his. On the Cloud Sea planet there was no such thing as tutoring classes. Naturally, there was no rule to restrict the teachers from setting up tutoring classes. Thinking of this, Mo sure couldn't help but feel excited. After returning to the school, the dean invited Mo sure to his office and explained some of the plans for the 100-star tournament in detail. He asked Mo sure to help with the planning. Mo sure smiled. "Dean, do you think the students I've taught still need any plans? They could crush them directly with their strength. Why would they need any plans?" The dean nodded. "Of course, the students taught by Teacher Mo are all much stronger than ordinary students. But we also need to be prepared. Just in case." Mo sure nodded. "Dean, you're right. How about this? I'll leave all the plans and records to you. I'll just be responsible for my 21 students." The dean smiled bitterly and could only nod. At this moment he could already see that Mo sure's strength was a level higher than his. In this world where strength was respected, Mo sure's status was higher than his. So whatever Mo sure said was the truth. In the blink of an eye the summer vacation had arrived. The 100-star tournament would only start 20 days after the vacation. Mo sure released the news in the school. Teacher Mo will be setting up tutoring classes during the summer vacation and recruiting students. Each class will be 10 days and each class is limited to 100 students. The tuition fee is 1,000 dragon coins per person. Right now, Mo sure wasn't in the mood to spend 2 months to train in the mountains like he did with the 20 students of class 6 to 3. Each period was only 10 days long. In 10 days, these students would be recognized by the system as his students. In 10 days he had earned 100,000 dragon coins. Moreover, if there were more students, there would be more opportunities for talents to emerge. As a result, more people joined the army. By then, the number of people they killed on the battlefield would all be converted into their own dragon slaying points. Just thinking about it made him feel good. Someone asked why he didn't spend 2 months to focus on teaching 30 to 50 people and make them become students of class 6 to 3, who were far more outstanding than ordinary students. Of course not. Wouldn't that mean he wouldn't be able to collect so many dragon coins? Moreover, Mo sure would definitely become the enemy of the entire 10,000 Dragon Star region in the future. Wasn't grooming so many powerful students the same as grooming so many powerful enemies for himself? Mo sure had his own considerations for all of this. When Mo sure released the news, the entire academy went crazy in an instant. All the students saw how powerful the students of class 6 to 3 were. Previously they had thought of all kinds of ways to enter class 6 to 3, but the academy's rules didn't allow it, so they could only regretfully miss it. They didn't expect that the instructor of class 6 to 3 would actually want to recruit students during the summer vacation. This was simply an opportunity given to them by the heavens. Of course, they didn't expect to be as powerful as the students of class 6 to 3 in 10 days. However, they heard that as long as Instructor Mo had taught students before, they would be able to make a breakthrough within a day. Just this point alone was worth 1,000 dragon coins. Thus, on the first day of the summer vacation, he had recruited 100 students within the first minute. When he recruited students, it didn't matter how powerful you were, who introduced you, or how good your talent was. All of them were recruited on a first-come first-served basis. This also made the students who didn't have connections, financial resources, or talent to be reassured. As long as they had 10,000 dragon coins, they would definitely be able to enter the tutoring classes in the future. Mo sure asked Lei Rin to compile the information of these people and arrange them according to the order of arrival. In the end, all 800 students of the academy had signed up. Since ancient times, no tutoring classes had been able to recruit students as quickly as Mo sure. He glanced at the name list and said to Lei Rin, "Remove you in class 6 to 3 from the list." Lei Rin widened his eyes. "Don't, Brother Mo. You're teaching others, why don't you teach us? This isn't very good." Mo sure glared at Lei Rin. "The 21 of you have been by my side every day. I've already taught you what I should have taught you. Right now, the strength of any one of you is enough to crush the top students of the other academies. Following me is just a waste of time." Lei Rin could only helplessly shake his head. However, he wasn't worried about himself. Anyway, Mo sure lived in the same courtyard as him. If he didn't understand anything, he could ask him at any time. Very quickly, 10 days later, the time for the first semester had arrived. On the last day, Mo sure brought them to Earth's space to help them break through. Of course, although they had broken through in Earth's space when they returned to the real world, they still hadn't broken through. However, because they had experienced the feeling of breaking through in Earth's space, when they returned to the real world, this feeling wouldn't disappear. Therefore, their breakthroughs would be much faster. In just half a day, all 100 students had broken through. This shocked everyone once again. Helping 100 giant dragons break through in one day was completely beyond the understanding of the giant dragons. After becoming an evolved giant dragon, it would take 100 years for each level to break through. This was very normal. Now, Instructor Mo had helped all these students break through in half a day. This was simply shocking. In the next 20 days, Mo sure helped another 100 students break through to the next stage. The remaining students couldn't wait any longer. However, because the 100-star tournament would be held tomorrow, they could only wait for it to end. At the same time, the news that Mo sure could help 100 students break through every 10 days spread like wildfire. In just a few days, it had spread throughout the entire Cloud Sea star. This news had even spread to other planets. However, many people on other planets treated this as a joke. They even said that Mo sure was a swindler. Mo sure didn't care about this. At the same time, the news that the students of Class 6 to 3 led the 150 students to kill more than 130 dragon bandits didn't spread. This was because the dean had specifically instructed all the instructors to keep this news a secret. If this news was leaked, the students from other planets who were participating in the tournament would be on guard. Therefore, in order to catch them off guard, none of the students could leak this news. The students were all very self-aware. After all, this was related to the honor of the entire academy. They were part of the Cloud Sea Academy, so they naturally had to do their part for the academy. Chapter 6:13. Finally, on this day the 100-star tournament began. As the teacher and teacher of the 20 students, Mo sure naturally had to go. He also took the opportunity to learn more about the nearby planets. Although he had read a lot of information before, he couldn't understand anything just by looking at the information. You had to learn from all angles. The dean, a few leaders of the academy, Yu Yenran, Lei Ren, and the teachers and students of Class 6 to 3. A total of 30 people rode a small spaceship and headed to the venue of the tournament, Martial Arts Planet. After reaching the level of evolved giant dragon, every giant dragon could fly in the air. However, their flying speed was far slower than a spaceship. Therefore, when going to other planets, they would usually take a spaceship. After flying for more than an hour, they finally arrived at Martial Arts Planet. The Martial Arts Planet was an artificial planet built by hundreds of nearby planets. The planet was not big, only about the size of Earth in the past. The entire Martial Arts Planet was built from solidified meteorite lava from the depths of the starry sky. It was extremely sturdy. Basically, giant dragons below the level of evolved giant dragon could not cause any damage to Martial Arts Planet. Even if a super evolved giant dragon used its full strength, the damage it could cause to Martial Arts Planet was very limited. Moreover, after the damage, it was not as difficult to repair as other planets. The repair of Martial Arts Planet was relatively simple, as long as the damaged areas were melted and molded. The reason why the hundreds of nearby planets built Martial Arts Planet was for the super evolved giant dragons to spar with each other. The super evolved giant dragon's destructive power was too strong. No matter which planet they fought on, it would cause irreversible damage to the planet. Therefore, it was necessary to build such a Martial Arts Planet. However, the number of super-evolved giant dragons was small, so there were even fewer spars between them. Therefore, Martial Arts Planet was often idle. Later, everyone discussed and finally decided to hold the 100-star tournament once every 10 years on Martial Arts Planet. Of course, most of the time, everyone could rent Martial Arts Planet. When the teachers and students of Cloud Sea Academy arrived at Martial Arts Planet, there were already many teachers and students from other planets. When these people saw Cloud Sea Academy arrive, they all more or less showed a trace of disdain. Tisk, it's that academy that always ranks last in every tournament. If you ask me, they should just not participate in the 100-star tournament. It's a disgrace. Since ancient times, the Cloud Sea planet has never been able to advance in anything. This is understandable. The dean and the instructors naturally knew what these people were talking about. During the 100-star competition of the past, Ocean of Clouds Academy had suffered the cold gazes of the other academies. But there was nothing they could do about it. Who asked them to be so weak? In this world where strength was respected, if you were not strong enough, then don't blame others for making irresponsible remarks about you. But this time, the dean and the instructors looked at each other and sneered in their hearts. All of you will know how strong our academy is once the 100-star competition begins. It wasn't exaggerated to say that the students participating in the 100-star competition this time were the strongest in the history of the academy. At this moment, a spaceship flew over from the horizon. There were 2 large golden words on the ship, Golden Crow. The teachers and students of the other academies all turned their heads to look at the spaceship. Their words were filled with envy. The Golden Crow Academy from the Golden Crow planet is here. The Golden Crow Academy has won the championship 4 times in the last 500-star tournaments. Based on their current strength, they are a unique existence amongst all the other academies. I heard that the students of their academy are ridiculously strong this time. Basically, all of them are at the 8th rank or above. There are even 2 at the 10th rank. Yeah, they even poached an instructor from another planet. That instructor's teaching standard is rather high. With such an instructor guiding such students, it would be difficult for them to not win the championship. Alas, looks like we'll be accompanying them again. It didn't take long for the instructors and students of the Golden Crow Academy to disembark from the spaceship. Even though their expressions didn't change, it was obvious from their eyes that they were very proud. They had an innate sense of superiority when facing students from other planets. Their dean glanced at the other deans, and then his gaze descended onto the dean of Ocean of Clouds Academy. He walked over with large strides. The instructor who led the group behind him was the one who'd been poached from Ocean of Clouds Academy, Jean Pontu. The dean of Golden Crow Academy arrived before the dean of Ocean of Clouds Academy and patted him on the shoulder. "Ha! Old fellow, you're still alive?" The dean of Ocean of Clouds Academy roared with laughter as well. "You're still alive, so how could I dare to die first?" The dean of Golden Crow Academy spoke sarcastically. "Don't place last in this competition. Even my heart aches for you." They were old friends who'd known each other for over 10,000 years. They often spoke sarcastically to each other. However, when it came to the competition, it was the dean of Golden Crow Academy who spoke more sarcastically to the dean of Ocean of Clouds Academy. The dean of Ocean of Clouds Academy had no choice but to grit his teeth and swallow it. However, he was filled with confidence this time because he had the students of Class 6-3 with him. However, he didn't show it on the surface. He wanted to give the dean of Golden Crow Academy a huge surprise in the end. He even couldn't wait to see the dean of Golden Crow Academy's surprise and disbelief. The dean of Ocean of Clouds Academy couldn't help but feel delighted when he thought about how the other deans would react. At this moment, Jean Ponta led 20 students over to the students of Class 6-3. Glancing at the 20 students he had once taught, he chuckled. "All of you are doing well." The students of Class 6-3 were angry. People always wanted to climb higher. The Golden Crow Academy gave them a lot of money, so it was normal for them to go there. However, they had to at least finish teaching in this academy. At the very least, they had to inform the academy in advance so that they could be prepared and find other substitute instructors. However, they didn't do anything before, and they just left after talking to the dean. They left Class 6-3 behind. That was simply too unkind of him. The class monitor, Shui Bolin, snorted. "Very good." Jean Ponta laughed. "I'm very surprised that all 20 of you can participate in this competition. It seems that you've been working hard after I left." Shui Bolin snorted again. "Do you think we can't live without you?" Behind Jean Pontu, the 20 students of Golden Crow Academy were all unhappy when they heard that. "It's you who are too weak. Instructor Jean is not willing to teach you. The planet at the bottom, the academy at the bottom, and the students at the bottom. Who the hell is willing to teach you?" After that, they turned around and left. The students of Class 6-3 all glared at them angrily. Emosher looked at the backs of those students and Jean Pontu and said to the students of Class 6-3, "If you meet them, beat them to death." Chapter 6:14. There were more than 100 planets, more than 100 academies, and each academy had 20 students. In total, there were more than 2,000 students. The organizing committee of this tournament started with the lot drawing ceremony. This tournament used an elimination system. No matter who the student was, as long as they lost a match, they would be eliminated. This system was quite cruel to the students, but they had no choice. Living in this 10,000 Dragon Star region, they had to face such cruel rules. This was the so-called natural selection and survival of the fittest. Class 6-3 students finished their lot drawing. The dean and a group of academy leaders led Class 63 students into the inner part of the planet. The inner part of the planet was hollow, and there were all kinds of living and entertainment facilities. Basically, when the instructors and students of each academy entered the planet, They started to study intensely and explained all kinds of martial arts knowledge to the students. Only Yunhai Academy's instructors were very relaxed when they entered the inner part of the planet. After entering the inner part of the planet, Mo Shi directly told the students that he was tired and wanted to sleep. They were free to do whatever they wanted. Then he went into his room. He didn't care about the students anymore. The students were happy to be free. They strolled around the streets here and played in the entertainment places there. They had a lot of fun. On the other hand, the students of the other academies were locked in their rooms to train alone. They didn't go out for the whole day. When the masters of the other academies saw that the students of Yunhai Academy didn't do their jobs, they all laughed in their hearts. Yunhai Academy really didn't improve. Who said they didn't? They were last place every year and they still didn't learn their lesson this year. Especially Jean Pontu, when he saw how relaxed the students of class 63 were, he couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. The good seedlings I brought were all ruined by that instructor Mo. When the dean of Jinwu Academy saw this, he also shook his head. That old guy's academic skills were getting worse and worse. He brought a bunch of rubbish. The students of Yunhai Academy naturally knew how the others thought of them, but they didn't show it on their faces, but they were laughing coldly in their hearts. Laugh, laugh, laugh all you want. When tomorrow's 100-star tournament starts, it will be too late for you to cry. If there were words, it would be long. If there were no words, it would be short. The night quickly passed. At 9 o'clock in the morning on the second day, all the instructors and students came to the surface of the planet again. On the surface of the martial duel planet, there were a total of 100 huge circular battle arenas. Each arena had a radius of 10 kilometers. Around the Colosseum, there were spectator seats that could accommodate tens of thousands of people. Although the spectator stands were far from the center of the arena, the dragons were able to see everything clearly with their eyesight. However, all the students were divided into 100 arenas, so it was impossible for the audience to watch all 100 arenas. Therefore, there were over 100 giant screens floating in the air above the arena. Through these giant screens, the audience could easily see the situation in each arena. None of the activities in the 10,000 Dragon Star area had the lengthy speeches of the leaders on Earth. Therefore, under the referee's command, the battles of the 200 students in the 100 arenas began at the same time. There were 3 students from class 6 to 3 in the first round. The 3 of them basically finished the battle with a single move. However, there were too many students on the field, so no one paid any attention to them. Everyone's attention was on the contestants from the Golden Crow Academy and the other seeded academies. Finally, after the first round, the 3 students from the Golden Crow Academy had won. Almost everyone was busy congratulating the Golden Crow Academy, so they ignored the fact that the 3 students from the Cloud Ocean Academy had won more easily than the Golden Crow Academy. On the contrary, Instructor Jean from the Golden Crow Academy was surprised to see that the 3 students from class 6 to 3 had all advanced. Yo, I didn't expect you guys to advance too. Not bad. He didn't hide the ridicule on his face as he spoke to Mo Shi. Mo Shi couldn't be bothered with such a person and didn't even bother to talk to him. However, this didn't make Instructor Jean leave. Instead, it made him even angrier. I'm a real gold medal instructor, and you're just a substitute instructor. How dare you ignore me? When your students encounter the Golden Crow Academy, it'll be too late for you to cry. In the next few rounds, the students from the Golden Crow Academy and the Cloud Ocean Academy all advanced. As the total number of people had reached more than 1,000, no one paid attention to the Cloud Ocean Academy. Everyone was busy celebrating the advancement of the Golden Crow Academy students. Instructor Jean, you're really good. All your students advanced. The Golden Crow Academy is worthy of being a gold medal academy. All of them advanced in the first round. How enviable. Looks like the champion this year will be the Golden Crow Academy again. The first round ended in the afternoon, and the second round would be held the next day. Because the strengths of the students that were able to enter the second round were even stronger, the instructors of the various academies were concentrating on guiding their students, and they instilled all sorts of theoretical and practical knowledge into their students. On the other hand, the students of Ocean of Clouds Academy were still wandering about freely on the streets and scenic spots. Many instructors and students couldn't stand it anymore. Sure enough, they're here on a public holiday. I wonder why such an academy and such instructors still exist. If they were on our planet, they wouldn't even live for half a year. However, only those students who were defeated by the students of the Cloud Ocean Academy today realized how powerful the students of the Cloud Ocean Academy were. Their instructors also realized how powerful the Cloud Ocean Academy was. Basically, as soon as they met, they cupped their fists and bowed, and in the next second, their students were directly knocked down to the ground. They had never seen such powerful students before. They were simply heaven-defying existences. Did they even suspect that these people were students? Could it be that they were teachers of the academy in disguise? However, when they mentioned this to the instructors of the other academies, they were rolled their eyes at. They said that it was an excuse for their elimination. The second round continued on the second day. The students of the Cloud Ocean Academy still won. Of course, no one paid attention to them because all the attention was on the Golden Crow Academy and the other seeded academies. The Cloud Ocean Academy was still the target of ridicule. But this time there were much fewer people who ridiculed them, because many who ridiculed them before were defeated by them. However, this wasn't the goal of the Cloud Ocean Academy. Their goal was to defeat the Golden Crow Academy and Instructor Jin's students. Because there were only 500 students left, the 20 of them would very likely encounter the students of the Golden Crow Academy tomorrow. At that time they would show everyone how powerful the Cloud Ocean Academy was. Chapter 6:15. The next morning, all 2,000+ students and instructors came to the surface of the 5 Stars Battle Arena. There were over 1,000 students participating in today's competition, and the Golden Crow Academy from planet Golden Crow was still the most favored. Their strength was indeed far superior to the students from other academies. The first 3 students defeated their opponents within 5 seconds. This was an eye-opener for all the instructors and students present. That Jin Ming from the Golden Crow Academy is so powerful. He defeated his opponent in 5 seconds. That Tu Hao is also very strong. His pair of hammers are swinging vigorously, and his defensive skills are dazzling. And that Kong Se is actually a rare spatial attribute expert. His spatial skills are impossible to guard against. The other academies can only pray that they won't be beaten to death if they encounter these students from the Golden Crow Academy. At this moment, another student from the Golden Crow Academy entered the arena. This student was Jin Ming's twin, and his name was Jin Xiang. He used a pair of swords and killed his opponent in one hit in the last round. His opponent just happened to be Jin Jian from the Ocean of Clouds Academy. The competition was about to begin, and the contestants from both sides entered the arena. Everyone was still optimistic about the students from the Golden Crow Academy. This Jin Xiang and Jin Ming are brothers, right? They look so similar. That goes without saying. They're obviously twins. Since Jin Ming is so strong, Jin Xiang shouldn't be too bad. Of course. I heard that they have the same talent since they were young, and their speed of advancement is the same. Their strength is about the same. Moreover, look at his opponent, he is from the Ocean of Clouds Academy. Why don't you take a look at what the Ocean of Clouds Academy has been doing these past 2 days? Others are revising and cultivating while they are strolling on the streets. It would be unreasonable if they still want to get a good ranking. Get the hell down from the Ocean of Clouds Academy. Don't go up and embarrass yourselves. Don't you see how strong the Golden Crow Academy is? You're just looking for a beating. When Jin Xiang heard these discussions, he didn't pay any attention to them. A faint smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Jin Jian naturally heard these discussions and curses, but he didn't care. His face didn't have any expression. What he was thinking in his heart would be known by the 3 of them later. At the same time, all the teachers and students from the Ocean of Clouds Academy had the same thought. They couldn't wait to see the surprised and puzzled expressions on these people's faces. The competition begins. Following the referee's order. Clang. The sound of a sword being unsheathed could be heard. At the same time, a golden sword light illuminated the entire area. The next moment, a sword light pierced through Jin Xiang's heart. At the same time, Jin Xiang fell down powerlessly. The golden sword light disappeared solemnly. At the same time, Jin Jian stood with his hands behind his back. His face was still expressionless. His gaze was still as sharp as a sword. At this moment, silence reigned. The entire martial arts arena was silent. Everyone's eyes and mouths were wide open as they stared in disbelief at the situation on the Colosseum. They didn't even see what happened. At the same time, the big screen in the arena was replaying everything that had just happened. When the referee announced the start of the fight, the crowd was stunned. Jin Jian's right hand suddenly condensed a sword light and instantly pierced through Jin Xiang's heart. The speed, accuracy, and ruthlessness of the attack caused him to be unable to react at all. Everyone who saw this scene widened their eyes and mouths as they stared at the big screen in disbelief. Once again, the entire place fell into dead silence. It wasn't until a moment later that someone reacted. How is this possible? He actually killed Jin Xiang in an instant. He's just a loser from the Cloud Sea Academy. How could he kill a genius from the Golden Crow Academy in an instant? Especially the dean of the Golden Crow Academy. At this moment, the teacup in his hand was shaking slightly. Instructor Jin Pantu from the Golden Crow Academy was staring at Jin Xiang in disbelief. He knew these students the best. Although Jin Xiang and Jin Ming were twins and people thought their strength was about the same, in fact, Jin Xiang's talent was slightly higher than Jin Ming's. In particular, Jin Xiang's swordsmanship was much higher than Jin Ming's. Therefore his strength was higher than Jin Ming's. At the same time, because he had taught Jin Jian for more than 30 years, he was very clear about Jin Jian's strength. Jin Jian's level was 3 levels lower than Jin Xiang's, and his strength was much lower than Jin Xiang's. In his opinion, although Jin Xiang couldn't kill Jin Jian in an instant, he could at least defeat Jin Jian in 3 moves. However, the result was exactly the opposite. Jin Xiang was killed by Jin Jian in an instant. He couldn't accept it at all. He had only left for more than half a semester. How could Jin Jian's strength change so drastically? However, this was the truth. He couldn't accept it. He could only send other students to carry the seriously injured Jin Xiang down. Then he checked Jin Xiang's injuries. The sword light pierced right through Jin Xiang's heart. It was fast, accurate, and ruthless. It was completely different from the style he used to teach. Obviously, after he left, there was an expert who taught Jin Jian. He turned his gaze and looked at the rest area of the Cloud Ocean Academy. Was it the dean? As a super-evolved dragon, the dean was most likely to be the one. However, he had never seen the dean use a sword. Was it another instructor? It didn't look like it. None of the other instructors had such sharp swordsmanship. Was it that stranger? He had never seen him before he left the academy. However, this guy looked sloppy. When the students were playing outside, he didn't come out to discipline them. When the students were suffering from sinus infections, he also acted as if it had nothing to do with him. He sat there as if he was enjoying the scenery. How could he have such sharp swordsmanship? However, it was unlikely for anyone except him. He couldn't figure it out. He decided to go back and investigate after today's competition. The competition continued. After a while, the Earth Element Dragon of the Golden Crow Academy was fighting against the Earth Element Dragon of the Cloud Ocean Academy. The Earth Element Dragon of the Golden Crow Academy was called Tu Dashin. In the previous rounds, he had killed his opponents in an instant. Although he wasn't as strong as Tu Hao in the eyes of the other academies, Tu Dashin was also a rare genius. In their eyes, Tu Dashin of the Cloud Ocean Academy was just looking for a beating. When Tu Dashin got on the stage, Jin Panta said, "Killing him in an instant is too easy. Go up there and torture him to death." Tu Dashin nodded, "Don't worry, instructor." Soon both sides got on the stage. The audience cheered and cheered once again. Of course, their cheers were not for the Cloud Ocean Academy, but for the Golden Crow Academy. Chapter 616. In everyone's eyes, Golden Crow Academy students were seeded contestants. Although Jin Xiang was defeated, they still had 19 seeded contestants. So when Tu Dashin went on stage, almost all the students cheered excitedly. Because they had seen Tu Dashin send his opponent flying with one punch. That was definitely a visual impact. Dashin, Dashin, your power is boundless. Dashin, Dashin, I love you, I want to have a baby with you. Dashin, kill him. Golden Crow Academy student, is there a need to say? He can easily kill the guy on the other side. Tu Dashin leaped over a kilometer and landed in the middle of the arena. Tu Ching had been waiting there for a long time. Tu Dashin looked at Tu Ching as if he was looking at a hoodlum. He said in disdain, "Your academy student just heavily injured my classmate." Tu Ching chuckled and scratched the back of his head. "Sorry, I'll apologize to your classmate on his behalf." Tu Dashin saw this guy admitting defeat the moment they met and felt even more disdain for him. "Hehe, if apologizing is useful, why do you need me to come up?" Tu Ching was also puzzled and scratched the back of his head again. "Yeah, why did you come up?" Tu Dashin was speechless for a moment. He wondered if this guy had a screw loose in his head. "Why do you think I came up?" "I don't know." "Beat you up." Saying that, Tu Dashin leaped out. Originally, the two of them were 50 meters apart. But with Tu Dashin's leap, the distance between the two of them instantly shrunk to 1 meter. At the same time, his right hand clenched into a fist and with the momentum of charging forward, he instantly punched out. It fiercely blasted towards Tu Ching. Everyone was stunned when they saw this scene. He wanted to kill this guy in one hit. They had seen Tu Dashin's punches before. Although the power was extraordinary, it was not as powerful as before. After Tu Cheng leaped out, there were 2 deep footprints left on the ground where he was previously standing. Tu Cheng had used his full strength right from the start. Boom, there was a loud sound. A shockwave spread out in all directions. Fortunately, there were energy shields around the arena. These energy shields were specially arranged by the tournament's organizing committee. They had invited over 100 ranked 10 evolved dragons to inject their energy into them. No matter how strong these students were, as long as they had not reached the level of a super evolved giant dragon, it was impossible for them to break through the light barrier. However, at that moment, under the impact of the shockwave, a crack actually appeared on the light barrier. Although this crack was extremely small, it still shocked all the teachers and students present. Cracks have appeared on the defensive barrier. Just the shockwave alone was enough to crack the defensive light barrier. How powerful was that attack? That fellow from Ocean of Clouds Academy was probably blasted into bits, right? He won't die. After all, death is allowed in the grand competition. But it will definitely be a serious injury. I understand now. Jin Jian from Ocean of Clouds Academy heavily injured Jin Xiang from Golden Crow Academy, so Tu Dashin used his full strength as soon as the battle began. He's taking revenge for Jin Xiang. At this point, everyone finally understood. No wonder Jin Xiang used his full strength from the beginning. Then, everyone looked towards the center of the arena. In the middle of the arena stood a man. He was still in a punching posture. Contrary to everyone's expectations, the person standing was not Tu Dashin. It was Tu Cheng from Ocean of Clouds Academy. On the opposite side of Tu Cheng, at the edge of the arena 5 kilometers away, there was a figure stuck on the energy light barrier. At that moment, half of the figure's body had already disappeared. The remaining half of his body was stuck in the energy barrier, blood spurting out from his mouth. His back had already smashed a hole in the energy light barrier. His entire back and buttocks were stuck on the energy light barrier, exposing the outside of the light barrier. At that moment, everyone was extremely shocked when they saw this scene. This person was none other than Tu Dashin. This is Tu Dashin from Golden Crow Academy? Oh my god, what's going on? What the hell happened? Everyone looked at the miserable earth mountain inconceivably, and looked at the field that seemed to have done nothing, a harmless Tuching Earth city. Then they looked at the big screen in the air. On the big screen, Tu Dashin was charging towards Tu Cheng, covering 50 meters in one step. Tu Cheng did not make any shocking movements. He simply stretched out his right fist and met Tu Dashin's fist. Boom, the two of them punched each other. Then Tu Dashin was instantly sent flying backwards. Even if it was a slow-motion replay, but even in the slow motion his flying speed was still extremely fast. From this, it could be seen how fast he was sent flying. Seeing the slow-motion replay, everyone's eyes looked at the Tu Cheng in the center of the arena. Tu Dashin's strength was at the top of the 2,000 students. But this guy's punch actually reduced Tu Dashin to such a state. Just how strong was he? Even most of the instructors couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. They knew that they could not take Tu Cheng's punch head-on. How did this guy train? It was said that during the previous test he was only a rank 1 evolved dragon. At that time, all the mentors and students were laughing at him in Ocean of Clouds Academy. Is there no one else in Ocean of Clouds Academy? They actually sent a rank 1 evolved dragon to participate in the tournament. Now, everyone finally knew how terrifying this rank 1 evolved dragon's strength was. In the previous match, after Jin Jian had shown such a powerful strength, many people regarded Jin Jian as their biggest opponent. Especially Golden Crow Academy, they planned to focus on studying Jin Jian. But now they realized that Tu Cheng was even more terrifying than Jin Jian. Looks like they had to focus on studying this guy. However, this was just the beginning. Next, Shueibua, Kongming, and even Hickey Wanqing all displayed powerful strength. And coincidentally, their opponents were all from Golden Crow Academy. In the end, they all defeated Golden Crow Academy students in one move. Finally, in today's battle, 12 students from Ocean of Clouds Academy faced Golden Crow Academy students. All of them defeated their opponents in one move. More than half of Golden Crow Academy students were eliminated. At this point, all the students and mentors were shocked. They looked down on Ocean of Clouds Academy the most, but they did not expect it to be so terrifying. As long as they encountered a seeded contestant, they would basically crush the seeded contestant to the ground. How could they be so strong? Chapter 6:17. In this round, 12 people from the Golden Crow Academy had fallen. All of them had fallen at the hands of the students from the Cloud Sea Academy. Moreover, all of them had been killed in one move. Even the weakest rank 1 evolved dragon, Tu Ching, had been able to kill Tu Dashin in one move. Moreover, his battle was the most shocking. Only now did the instructors and students of the academy come to a sudden realization. So the students of the Cloud Sea Academy were actually so strong. They couldn't help but look at the students of the Cloud Sea Academy with a bit of reverence. This was a world where the strong were respected. The strength displayed by the Cloud Sea Academy made all the instructors and students look at them in a new light. As for the instructors and students of the Golden Crow Academy, besides being shocked, they felt slightly embarrassed. The Dean of the Golden Crow Academy looked at the Dean of the Cloud Sea Academy from afar as if he was looking at a stranger. He had known this old fellow for so many years. This old fellow was indeed very strong, but in terms of learning he was far inferior. So much so that the Cloud Sea Academy was basically the last few in every 100-star tournament. He didn't expect it to soar so high this time. This was definitely not the ability of that old fellow. Thinking of this, the Dean of the Golden Crow Academy turned to look at the instructors of the Cloud Sea Academy. He and the Dean of the Cloud Sea Academy were old friends, so he often went to the Cloud Sea Academy. He also knew these instructors. Based on his understanding of these instructors, none of them had such ability. At this moment, his gaze swept over to Emosher, who was sitting in his seat and looking around casually. Could it be him? From this fellow's temperament and other aspects, it didn't seem like it. But besides him there was no one else. Looks like I have to get to know this fellow as soon as I go back today. At this moment, Jean Ponta felt as if he had eaten 12 piles of shit. Furthermore, they were fed by the students that he had taught in the past. Especially Tu Ching Earth City. In his eyes, Tu Ching was a complete piece of trash. In the past he had used all kinds of methods, but he couldn't make Tu Ching improve even a little. Moreover, Tu Ching couldn't improve, so he gave up on himself. He became the last in the entire class and even the entire academy. In the 30 years he has been leading these students, Tu Ching Earth City has never had any eye-catching performance. Unexpectedly, in just over 2 months, the strength of Tu Ching Earth City has changed so dramatically. What the hell was going on? After the battles came to an end, all those deans and instructors who were ridiculing and disdainful towards Ocean of Clouds Academy had come over to greet the deans and instructors of the academy. Obviously he was trying to make friends. The Dean of Ocean of Clouds Academy naturally felt amused as he gazed at their ugly faces. Weren't they all quite capable in the past? Why are they all trying to curry favor with me now? However, he didn't dislike it. This was because it was the natural behavior of dragons to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages. Moreover, since these fellows had come to curry favor with him, it would make things easier for him in the future. For example, if the equipment in Ocean of Clouds Academy wasn't complete, then he could allow his students to visit the other academies and even borrow their equipment. However, Emosher didn't care who they were and rejected them all. He completely ignored them. After they returned to the academy that night, the instructors of the various academies started to study Ocean of Clouds Academy. He studied the instructors and students of Ocean of Clouds Academy. It was even to the extent that some academies even exchanged their experiences. In the end, all of them came to a consensus that the reason Ocean of Clouds Academy had suddenly become so strong was entirely because of Instructor Mo. However, they knew very little about Instructor Mo's background and identity. It was even to the extent that they utilized a considerable amount of their connections to investigate Emosher's identity. However, they were unable to find anything in the end. According to Emosher's identity, they were only able to find information about Emosher after he arrived at Ocean of Clouds Academy. They were unable to find out what he did and where he'd been before he arrived at Ocean of Clouds Academy. But the more it was like this, the more mysterious Emosher was to them. Moreover, the more mysterious a person was, the stronger that person was. If there's an expert in Ocean of Clouds Academy, then it can only be Instructor Mo. Did all of you notice the dean's attitude towards him today? It didn't seem like the dean was speaking to an instructor at all, and it seemed like the dean was speaking to a senior instead. Yes, I noticed as well. Instructor Mo's identity is so mysterious, so he's definitely a great figure. So, we have to be careful before him in the future. Don't offend him before we figure out his identity. You make it sound like we can offend him once we figure out his identity. As soon as these words were spoken, all the other instructors could only shake their heads and laugh bitterly. To be honest, even if they figured out Instructor Mo's identity, it was very likely that his background would be able to shock them to death. So, it seemed like it was best not to figure it out. During the next 3 days, the final rounds of the competition were carried out. The remaining 8 students from Golden Crow Academy were practically instantly annihilated when facing the other academies. However, they were instantly annihilated when facing Ocean of Clouds Academy. In the end, the remaining 8 students from Golden Crow Academy were eliminated as well. Even the strongest amongst them, Jin Ming, was actually instantly annihilated when facing Mu Wanqing, who seemed to be the weakest amongst the students from Ocean of Clouds Academy. This allowed everyone present here to experience how terrifying the students of Ocean of Clouds Academy were. All of them couldn't help but look at Mo once more. Exactly how formidable is this instructor Mo to be able to teach such a group of students? In the end, when the competition came to an end, 12 of the top 20 were students from Ocean of Clouds Academy. As for why the remaining 8 hadn't been able to enter the top 20, it was because the students of Ocean of Clouds Academy had encountered each other before they even entered the top 20. For example, Mu Wanqing was no match for Jin Jian during the competition to determine the top 16, so she could only be eliminated. But even then, not a single student dared to look down on Mu Wanqing. All of them unanimously felt that if it wasn't an elimination system but a point system, then it wouldn't be a problem for all the students from Ocean of Clouds Academy to occupy the top 20. Of course, there were some students from Ocean of Clouds Academy who felt rather disappointed. It was Lei Ren. He'd finally been able to follow them here, yet he could only be a spectator in the end. Mo sure couldn't help but roar with laughter when he saw Lei Ren's aggrieved expression. He consoled. "Don't worry, you'll have a chance to participate in the next competition once you graduate." Lei Ren puckered his lips. "What if you graduate and lead a new batch of students? At that time, it'll be another 20 students from your class." Mo sure waved his hand and said, "Don't worry about that. It's troublesome enough for me to lead these 20+ students. I won't lead any more after I'm done with them." Mo sure had already made up his mind. After he returned to Ocean of Clouds Academy, he would run his own tutoring class properly. He would spread the name of his tutoring class. At that time, it would be held every 10 days. It would save him a lot of trouble and he would be able to collect more money. Moreover, he would be able to make the system acknowledge these students as his students. 3 birds with 1 stone. Chapter 6:18. The Cloud Ocean Academy used their overwhelming advantage to become the champion of the 100-star competition. The 20 students of the Cloud Ocean Academy were deeply engraved in the minds of the over 2,000 teachers and students. Their performance, their domineering temperament, and their ruthlessness caused all the teachers and students to be deeply impressed. As for their teacher Mo Sure, he was deeply engraved in everyone's mind. What kind of teacher was able to teach such students? How terrifying was the teacher's strength to be able to teach such students? On the last day of the competition, all the teachers and students gathered for a meal. A large gathering of over 2,000 people could be said to be a magnificent sight. During the meal, many teachers came to toast the dean of the Cloud Ocean Academy. Of course, there were also many teachers who came to toast Mo Sure. I only toasted these people, but I didn't refuse any of them. These people all praised him for his great alcohol tolerance, but they were all silently wondering where this fellow came from and how strong he was. These people thought that they had become friends with Mo Sure after drinking with him, but in reality, Mo Sure was just drinking. As for making friends with them, they could go fuck themselves. He didn't want to make friends with so many people now. He only wanted to nurture his students. When the time came, his students would spread all over the world. Would he still need to care about the faces of others? No one from the other academies left first. They all sent the teachers and students of the Cloud Ocean Academy to their flying ships and watched them leave before leaving silently. After the conference ended, a name began to spread on more than 100 nearby planets. This name naturally belonged to Mo Sure, Teacher Mo. At the beginning, the students of the various academies were talking about how amazing this Teacher Mo was, and how valiant the students he taught were. Because these academies were the strongest academies on each planet, the legends of these students quickly spread across the entire planet. Thus, Mo Sure's name spread throughout the nearby 100+ planets in an extremely short period of time. Of course, this was all in the future. When the students of the Cloud Ocean Academy returned to the Cloud Ocean, they received a warm welcome from the entire planet. After all, this was the greatest honor that the Cloud Ocean Academy had received in the past 100 years. The teachers and students of the Cloud Ocean Academy had brought honor to the entire planet. The entire Cloud Sea Star held a grand welcoming banquet for the Academy. At the welcoming banquet, Mo Shi's status was also very high. For a time, Mo Shi was in the limelight on Cloud C planet. During the banquet, Mo Shi made an important announcement. Instructors, students, and officials taking advantage of this banquet, I would like to announce an important decision. Mo Shi raised his glass and said. Hearing Mo Shi's words, all the instructors, students, and officials turned to look at him. Well, in order to cultivate more talents for Yunhai, I've decided to open a summer cram school. The cram school will recruit students from all over Yunhai. Hearing Mo Shi's words, the students present immediately became excited. After all, only students from Cloud C Academy had attended Mo Shi's cram school. Today, those who had arrived at the venue were the genius students of the various academies. When they heard that Mo Shi had led so many students to achieve such good results, they wanted to acknowledge Mo Shi as their teacher. However, the academy had its own rules, and it wasn't something you could do as you pleased. They were worried about how to get Mo Shi's guidance. They didn't expect Mo Shi to announce that he was opening a cram school. How could they not be overjoyed? The officials and instructors present were also surprised. Although there hadn't been a cram school in their world before, everyone knew that Mo Shi had opened one before. In their opinion, Mo Shi was a very quiet person who stood aloof from worldly affairs. There were many things that Mo Shi found troublesome. Why would he announce that he was recruiting students from all over Yunhai? Mo Shi continued, the cram school I'm opening doesn't have any requirements for talent. No matter how high or low your talent is, even if you're trash, as long as you attend my cram school, I guarantee that you'll be able to advance by one level within 10 days. If your level is low, you can even advance by 2 or 3 levels. As soon as Mo Shi said this, it immediately caused a wave of exclamations. Mo Shi's cram school didn't have any requirements for talent. This made everyone exclaim in disbelief. After all, almost every academy had a requirement for talent when they recruited students. Actually, this was understandable. If you didn't have any talent, it would be a waste to spend so much effort, manpower, and money on you. Now, Mo Shi was recruiting students without any requirements for talent. Moreover, he guaranteed that every student would advance by at least one level within 10 days. How could this not surprise everyone? If an ordinary person said this, they would probably be beaten half to death on the spot. However, it was Instructor Mo from Yunhai Academy who said this. After all, Instructor Mo had just led so many students and won the championship in the 100-star tournament in an absolutely crushing manner. Moreover, Instructor Mo's ability to advance by one level within 10 days was also confirmed by the Yunhai Academy. Even if they didn't believe in others, how could they not believe in Yunhai Academy? In the end, Mo Shi said, I only have one principle when I recruit students. Everyone hurriedly listened attentively. As long as you have money, as long as you have 1,000 dragon coins, I guarantee that every student will advance by one level within 10 days. When everyone heard this, they were all extremely excited. Especially the students. 1,000 dragon coins was indeed very expensive for ordinary people. However, these 1,000 dragon coins were nothing compared to the cost of leveling up once. After all, many people needed over 100 years to advance by one level. Could it be that you couldn't even earn 1,000 dragon coins in 100 years? Thus, many students immediately came to Mo Shi to ask about all kinds of problems. The scene instantly became chaotic. The officials felt quite embarrassed. According to the customs of Yunhai planet, no one would set up a cram school like this. In their understanding, this was something they were accustomed to. Such a cram school didn't have any qualifications, and the quality of the teaching couldn't be guaranteed. Thus, such a cram school couldn't make any money at all. If a teacher really set up a cram school like this, they would be looked down upon by others. These officials all wanted to dissuade Mo Shi, but Mo Shi didn't break any laws. In fact, Yunhai planet didn't have such laws at all. Thus, these officials could only feel embarrassed. The dean of Yunhai Academy and a few people who wanted to curry favor with Mo Shi all wanted to remind Mo Shi that it wasn't good to leave the officials to the side like this. If you don't go through the officials and apply for any documents and things like that, do you still have any respect for the officials? However, Mo Shi didn't care about all this nonsense. Even if I do it, what can you do to me? With his results and his current limelight, no one would dare to do anything to him. Chapter 619. On the second day after the banquet, Mo Shi's summer cram school started. When he signed up in the morning, it was even more crowded than the last cram school. He asked the students in his class to compile a list of names. In the end, more than 3,000 people signed up in the morning. Of these 3,000 people, 100 people formed a batch. There were 30 batches in total. In other words, the number of people who signed up in one day was enough to fill a whole year. No cram school on earth could be so popular. After the day of registration, Mo stopped signing up. This made the students who didn't sign up regret it. That afternoon, 5 students that Mo helped broke through. One of the students, who was only an ordinary giant dragon, advanced 3 ranks in 5 minutes. This shocked all the students. They were all enthusiastic about learning. Of course, with so many students, Mo didn't have time to teach them. Instead, he assigned these people to his 21 students. Each of them was in charge of 5 people. Those theoretical knowledge and so on were all taught by these students. Only at the last stage of advancement would Mo personally guide them. 10 days later, the first 100 people had graduated. Every one of them had advanced by at least 1 rank. As the saying goes, reputation is the best advertisement. After these people graduated and each of them advanced by a level, the news spread. They told their friends and relatives about their advancement. Some people even wrote all kinds of articles and videos on the internet to promote Mo's cram school. These kinds of online articles and videos quickly spread. Of course, many people thought that these were fake news. Some people even directly called for the government to ban this person and remove these fake news. But soon the government came out to speak. Recently, someone spread rumors that Mentor Mo's cram school is fake news. In this regard, we solemnly declare that Mentor Mo's cram school is not fake news. His cram school was spread by word of mouth among the students. Moreover, it is true that you can advance in 10 days. No matter how old you are or how high your aptitude is, you will definitely advance in 10 days. At the same time, we will maintain the right to pursue those who maliciously slander Mentor Mo. Once this statement was released, it was equivalent to official confirmation. Those who had said that Mo's cram school was false were not only slapped in the face but also disappeared without a trace. As a result, Mo's summer cram school became even more popular. There were hundreds of thousands of people asking about it on the internet and calling to inquire about it. Mo had no choice but to turn off the phone. For the rest of the summer vacation, Mo's cram school continued. Mo had recruited more than 600 students in just 60 days of the summer vacation. These students had basically all learned his various 9 dragon transformations. Of course, Mo did not teach them all the 9 dragon transformations. After all, their aptitudes varied. It was impossible for everyone to learn everything in 10 days. Most people only learned the first transformation. Only an extremely small number of people with aptitude and intelligence managed to learn the second transformation. Mo also planned to keep those heavenly geniuses by his side and teach them the various third dragon transformation. These few students who were able to stay by Mo's side all cried out in relief. But the 21 students of the academy were even luckier. They were very glad that Mo could come to the academy. Otherwise, with their aptitudes, it would be impossible for them to stay by Mo's side. Moreover, through these 2 months of teaching, they could also see that Mo was serious about teaching them at that time. Not only did he teach them the various 9 dragon transformations and let them level up, but he also brought them to gain experience and even took them to suppress bandits. This allowed their progress to far surpass these ordinary students. But now, these students were basically just leveling up and teaching them the various 9 dragon transformations. He did not care about anything else. As a result, these students' greatest gain was only leveling up. As for their combat strength compared to the 21 of them, the difference was like heaven and earth. Of course, they only knew this in their hearts and would not say it out loud. In their opinion, it was already very good for these students to be able to level up. You've only paid 1,000 dragon coins, allowing you to advance by 1 stage and learn such a profound cultivation technique and skill. What else do you want? There were still many other students who wanted to squeeze their heads in, but Mo didn't want them. After school started, Mo only went to the academy in the morning and continued with his tutoring classes in the afternoon. He had already taught these students everything he could, so there was no point in staying in the academy. And these students came to help Mo every afternoon. To them, being able to stay by Mo's side was already a great fortune. Strictly speaking, Mo's current actions were against the rules, but the academy turned a blind eye to Mo's actions. Such an outstanding teacher naturally had to have some special privileges. If you don't give him some privileges, why should he stay in this lousy academy? The Cloud Sea Academy was only one of the most remote academies in the entire star field. With such great ability, he could go to the best academy in the entire star field, get the best treatment and make friends with the best talents. Time gradually flew, and in the blink of an eye, a year had already passed. In addition to the original 21 people, Emosher took in another 79 students, making a total of 100 people. He kept these 100 people by his side and trained them. Gradually, the strength of these students reached the level of the original 21 people. With such a force, no matter which academy they went to, they would definitely be the target that those academies would fight over. Now they were all gathered under Emosher's command. Originally, Emosher thought that the days would pass by in such an ordinary way. Once the number of people under his command reached a certain level, he would go to other planets. But on this day there was chaos on Cloud Sea Planet. The Cloud Sea Planet Star-Lord died suddenly. It was important to note that the Cloud Sea Planet Star-Lord was a 4th grade super-evolved dragon. Under normal circumstances, he should still have tens of thousands of years of life left. Why did he suddenly die? But none of this was important. Next was to choose the Star-Lord's successor. After the death of every Star-Lord in the entire star field, the star field would choose their own successor. Of course, the successor could also be chosen according to the previous Star-Lord's last words. But this generation's Star-Lord had trained 2 people before he died. Konghai and Shiminghua. Konghai was a space attribute super-evolved dragon. He had reached the 3rd level. Shiminghua was an extremely rare time attribute super-evolved dragon. She had also reached the 3rd level. The 2 of them each led a group of forces. They attacked each other, both wanting to be the new Star-Lord. Chapter 620. On this day, after Emosher finished teaching a few students in the lakeside villa, he brewed a pot of tea and sat by the lake with Lei Ren to drink. Gradually, the moon rose above the willow branches and Lei Ren went back to rest. After all, he still had classes tomorrow. The night breeze was slightly cold, and the fragrance of flowers sent them off. Emosher couldn't help but want to call Happy and the others out to enjoy the beautiful night together. However, Happy and the others weren't dragons. If they were discovered, there might be a lot of trouble. More than 2 hours passed like this. Emosher was about to go back to sleep. Emosher was about to go back to sleep. A flying car stopped in the distance. Then 2 people got out of the car. The clothes of these 2 people looked like ordinary civilians. However, the temperament of the 2 of them was definitely not ordinary civilians. Emosher glanced at them. Both of them were rank 10 evolved dragons. One had to know that although rank 10 evolved dragons weren't the top existences in this world, they weren't common either. Now that these 2 were rank 10 evolved dragons, it could be seen that their identities weren't simple. The 2 of them came to Emosher and cupped their fists to Emosher. "Instructor Emo, I've heard a lot about you." He looked at the 2 of them up and down and saw that although their clothes were simple, they were very clean, and their hair was meticulously combed. "You are?" Emosher asked. "We are subordinates of Master Konghai. We were ordered by Master Kong to come and pay a visit to Instructor Emo." Emosher, after hearing these 2 people's words, knew why they came. He shook his head slightly. "I've always been unwilling to deal with the officials. Please go back." The 2 of them looked at each other and paused for a moment. After the sudden death of the previous Star-Lord, the 2 people with the greatest power on the planet were Konghai and Shiminghua. Konghai was once a soldier who fought in all directions and participated in the war between planets. He was iron-blooded and courageous. He won the respect of many soldiers in the barracks. After the onlookers, he won the respect of many civilians and political figures. On this planet, there were countless people who wanted to be recognized by Konghai and become his subordinates. But now this young instructor rejected Master Kong. This was something they didn't expect. Of course they wouldn't give up so easily. One of them said, "Don't say that Master Konghai values you very much. If you can join him, you will receive much higher status and respect than you have now. You don't have to trouble teaching so many students. We know that you must be short of money to teach so many students. If you join Lord Konghai's side, you will have plenty of money and beauties." Hearing this, Emosher burst into laughter. As he laughed, he shook his head. No wonder even with Lord Konghai's strength and status, he still hasn't defeated Shiminghua. Just because he has subordinates like you. Is this how you rope people in? Women? Money? To be able to catch the eye of Lord Konghai and reach such a position, who would care about worldly things like money and women? The 2 of them looked at each other again, and a look of understanding flashed across their eyes. Finally, the 2 of them saluted Emosher at the same time. "Instructor Emo, please advise us." Emosher shook his head. "If you want to rope someone in, you have to at least cater to their preferences. Before you go, don't you have to study this person's preferences and personality? The two of them replied, we have studied Instructor Mo. We think that Instructor Mo values money. Ah! Mo laughed heartily again. These two people were really interesting. Were all Kong Hai's subordinates like this? That was way too King honest. But when Mo plundered their memories, he found that things weren't that simple. Most generals liked to be straightforward and weren't that smart. And those civil officials played with people's hearts and politics. It was basically impossible for a general to play with civil officials. As a military general, Kong Hai was able to rise up in his official career. It was obvious that his thoughts weren't that simple. He was good at using people and naturally good at figuring out people's hearts. He knew that if he wanted to subdue someone like Mo Shi, normal methods wouldn't work. He could only use some special methods such as letting these two people show their honesty. Perhaps this would have some effect. In fact, if Mo Shi hadn't plundered their memories, it might have worked. And Mo Shi was indeed moved by the sincerity of these two people. He wanted to follow these two to see what kind of talents Kong Hai's subordinates were. But now, from the memories of these two people, he knew that these were just tricks that Kong Hai wanted to show him. It was a trick to attract him. And Mo Shi dispelled this idea. At the same time, he was really impressed by this empty brain. But Mo Shi wouldn't join Kong Hai because of this. He was free and happy as an instructor. Why should he be ordered by others? He waved his hand at the two of them. You don't have to do this. I've always been quiet and indifferent. I'm used to being free. If I go, I'll definitely cause trouble. Not only won't I be able to help Master Kong Hai, but I might also affect Master Kong Hai's important matters. Hearing this, the two of them looked at each other again and saw a flash of surprise in each other's eyes. Why did it seem like their thoughts were seen through by this person in front of them? This guy was too scary. They had only met for less than 5 minutes and had only exchanged a few words. Their thoughts were already seen through by this guy. No wonder Master Kong Hai valued this person so much. But now that they had said this, their purpose had been exposed. They could only salute Mo Shi with cupped fists. Instructor Mo, then I'm sorry to disturb you. With that, the two of them quietly said goodbye. The surroundings returned to peace. On the night of the second day, the peace of the lakeside villa was broken again. When Mo Shi was drinking tea by the lakeside, 2 more people came. These 2 people also drove flying cars. However, their flying cars didn't stop far away. Instead, they came directly in front of Mo Shi. The 2 of them got off the car. Their clothes were really normal, but their aura wasn't normal either. They cupped their fists towards Mo Shi and said, Instructor Mo, our master invites you. I chuckled and asked, who is your master? One of them replied, Master Shi Mingyue. I replied calmly and then ignored the 2 of them. It is your honor to be able to work for Master Shi. There was a domineering aura in his words. Instructor Mo, come with us if you know what's good for you. Even if you don't work for Master Shi, at least go and take a look. We have completed our mission. Don't make it hard for us. I laughed coldly. Why should I care if it's easy or not? Chapter 6:21. Don't make it difficult for us. The 2 men repeated their words with a hint of viciousness in their words. So what if I make it difficult for you? Mo Shi smiled indifferently and asked with a hint of ridicule. In that case, don't blame us. As the 2 spoke, energy surged from their bodies. One of them was of the time attribute, while the other was of the space attribute. Their energy intertwined, and the space around them seemed to be constantly surging like waves. Time and space intertwined, crush all things. The 2 let out a muffled roar from their throats at the same time. The black and chaotic energy on their bodies quickly swept toward Mo Shi. The black and chaotic energy kept intertwining, entangling, and surging around Mo Shi. In just a few seconds, Mo Shi was completely devoured. It seemed to have formed a small black hole. The 2 looked at each other and a smug smile appeared on their faces. Who said that evolved dragons couldn't fight against super-evolved dragons? Wasn't this so-called mentor Mo a super-evolved dragon? The 2 of them had defeated this guy in just a few seconds. After trapping this guy in the black hole, they just needed to bring him back. However, before the smiles on their faces disappeared, the black hole in front of them gradually disappeared. A figure walked out of the black hole with an ordinary face and body. The person in black was none other than Mo Shi. The smiles on the 2's faces froze, and endless fear appeared in their eyes. How is this possible? How did he break free from our spacetime black hole? Because they were too frightened, the two of them couldn't speak clearly. They really couldn't understand. This guy was at most a rank 2 super evolved dragon, and their spacetime black hole had once devoured a rank 3 super evolved dragon. Why didn't it work in front of this guy this time? Emo sure plundered their memories and knew what they were thinking. He chuckled. Because I'm not just rank 3. As he spoke, countless blood-red tentacles stretched out from under his feet. They crawled along the ground to the feet of the two, like countless red snakes crawling up their bodies, and finally completely devoured them. Meanwhile, their so-called time skills and space skills were completely ineffective against Emo sure. It was only now that the two of them realized that this person before them wasn't just a 3rd grade but a 4th grade. He might even be a 5th grade. Thinking of this, their eyes were filled with despair. Their spacetime combination could restrain any attribute, which allowed them to challenge Tier 2 or even Tier 3 super-evolved colossal dragons. However, no matter how strong their attributes were, the level gap was too large. They could do nothing about it. It was obvious that this person's level was much higher than theirs. Facing such a person, if they offended him, the only result would be death. The next moment, the two of them were completely swallowed by the blood-red tentacles. Another notification popped up in Emo sure's mind. His dragon slaying points had increased by 2. After killing these 2 people, his heart trembled slightly. In his mind he said, "System, check in for a special event." The system's voice quickly sounded frowny face sign in successful. Sign in event, killed spacetime attribute dragon. Sign in reward, dragon bloodline second mutation of the dragon vein? Emo sure was very surprised. Today's sign in reward was very strange. Just as he was surprised, his body began to change. He felt 2 streams of energy rushing from his left and right arms to his hands. Finally, they gathered in his palms. 2 vortexes were formed. The energy kept spinning in these 2 vortexes and was swallowed by them. At the same time, the color of these 2 vortexes kept changing. Finally, the vortex on his left hand turned into a chaotic color, and the vortex on his right hand turned black. This is... Emo sure looked at his hands. The chaotic color on his left hand represented the time attribute. The black color on his right hand represented the space attribute. Time on my left hand, space on my right. Combine left and right, reverse time and space. Emo sure said these 2 sentences for no reason. At this moment, energy surged in his hands. Emo sure couldn't help but squat down. He stretched out his left index finger. He pointed at a blade of grass by the lake. The chaotic energy gushed out from his index finger and was absorbed by the blade of grass. In the next moment, the blade of grass grew rapidly, reaching a height of more than a foot. Then it began to turn yellow and finally completely withered like a piece of hay in winter. It was September and the summer vacation hadn't completely ended yet. However, this blade of grass seemed to have experienced autumn and winter in this short moment. The time attribute is indeed amazing. Energy surged in Emo sure's right hand again. Facing the blade of grass, he gently separated his right index and middle fingers. A stream of black energy entered the blade of grass. The blade of grass was quickly torn into countless small powder. He didn't use dragon consciousness, nor did he use any other energy attack. Instead, he used a space attribute skill to refine the space where the blade of grass was into countless small fragments. Then he tore the blade of grass into pieces. Just imagine if he used such a skill on a giant dragon, the giant dragon wouldn't be able to resist at all. No wonder the time attribute and space attribute were the 2 strongest attributes in the 10,000 Dragon Star Zone. And now, Emo sure had time in his left hand and space in his right. Such a person had probably never appeared in the entire 10,000 Dragon Star Zone. Next, he tried to combine the energy in his left hand and right hand to perform a new skill. However, he had just obtained the energy of these 2 attributes after all. He wasn't familiar with them yet, so he failed after more than 10 attempts. Emo sure didn't force it. He just let nature take its course. Right now, he was a 6th grade super-evolved giant dragon and had mastered many 9 dragon transformations. Now that he had the time and space attributes, he had become the ceiling of the entire Cloud Sea planet. To put it bluntly, as long as he wanted to, he could do whatever he wanted on Cloud Sea planet. No one or any force could stop him. However, he had always kept a low profile. He was invincible in Cloud Sea planet, but who knew if there were even more powerful existences on other planets? For example, the ancient dragons. Therefore, before he became an ancient dragon, he felt that he had to keep a low profile. Once he became an ancient dragon, he would go on a killing spree and quickly advance. In his opinion, once he became an ancient dragon, it would be even harder to kill him. Then he would reveal his true identity. Even if there were other more powerful ancient dragons, they probably wouldn't be able to do anything to him. 2 hours later in Cloud Sea Starry Cloud City. Konghai's mansion. 2 subordinates reported to Konghai. Lord Konghai, he doesn't want to join us. Konghai sighed, if he doesn't want to, then so be it. My lord, should we kill him? Forget it. As long as he doesn't make an enemy out of us. Moreover, who knows what faction is behind him. Chapter 622. Cloud Sea City, Shi family mansion. In Shi Mingyue's study. Shi Mingyue frowned slightly and said, men. Soon the door opened and a person who looked like a guard walked in. Shi Mingyue asked, the 2 people who went to Emo Shi's place haven't returned yet? The guard replied, not yet, my lord. Find out why they haven't returned yet. There was a trace of impatience in Shi Mingyue's tone. The guard knew that Shi Mingyue was a little angry and quickly cupped his fists. Yes, my lord. Then he took out a small device on his left arm and turned it on. A blue beam of light shot out from the top of the device. In the beam of light was the projection of the 2 people. The 2 people left the Shi family mansion and took a flying car all the way to the lakeside villa. Soon they got off the car at the lakeside villa. They came in front of Emo Shi. After saying a few words, he moved and created a black hole. The black hole began to devour Emo Shi, but a moment later, Emo Shi walked out. Then he killed the 2 people. Seeing this, the guard couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Because of the 2 people sent by Shi Mingyue, one was of the time attribute and the other was of the space attribute. The 2 of them worked together to reverse time and space. In theory, the 2 of them could kill a grade 3 super-evolved giant dragon instantly. Even if they encountered a grade 4 super-evolved giant dragon, they could fight it. But now they were easily killed by Emo Shi. This was enough to show that Emo Shi's strength was very likely that of a grade 4 super-evolved giant dragon, or even a grade 5. If he really reached grade 5, he would be the strongest existence in the entire Cloud Sea planet. Previously, the Star Master was the strongest on Cloud Sea planet, a grade 5 super-evolved giant dragon. Now that the Star Master was dead, the strongest person was the man in front of him. Shi Mingyue's brows furrowed when she saw this. She thought that this guy was at most a grade 3 super-evolved giant dragon and that she could easily defeat him. She didn't expect this guy to be so strong. But soon, a fierce look flashed across her face. Since I can't use him, then I'll destroy him. No one on Cloud Sea planet was his match, but what about outside of Cloud Sea planet? Thinking of this, Shi Mingyue dialed an interstellar number. The person on the phone was not a human or a dragon but a blurry shadow. Senior brother, I have something I need your help with. The blurry shadow wriggled and made a strange rustling sound, similar to the rustling of leaves in the wind. If you want my help, the price is not low. I know. Come first. The blurry shadow paused for a moment before saying, Blood brothers settle accounts clearly. Let's settle the price first, then it'll be easier to handle the rest. Shi Mingyue cursed in her heart. He was really King obsessed with money, but on the surface he remained calm and collected. I need you to help me kill someone. How about a mid-sized spaceship? The blurry shadow chuckled. That depends on who you kill and what his level is. Might be 3rd grade. At best it could be 4th grade. Then he heard the rustling sound again. You have to pay more. Add your sister, you're really King obsessed with money? However, he remained calm on the surface and only nodded. How much do you want? Another 50 million, 30 million, 50 million, 35 million, 50 million, 40 million? Deal. The blurry shadow laughed again, laughing so hard that its body seemed to tremble. This reminds me of the business we did when we were young. I really miss that time. Shi Mingyue also smiled and shouted in a Chunibu manner, brothers of one mind. The blurry shadow continued to laugh. Sharp enough to cut through gold. The guard at the side kept cursing in his heart. Oh, this is called brothers of one mind? But it's true that sharp enough to cut through gold. Both of them are haggling for their own benefits. Of course, this thought was only in his heart. He did not dare to show any disrespect on the surface. Shi Mingyue hung up the phone. She cursed fiercely, just like when we were young, there's no King brotherhood, only benefits. As she spoke, she took a sip. The guard at the side still did not dare to say anything. 2 days later, in the study of Shi Mingyue's residence. There was only Shi Mingyue and her senior brother. It was a humanoid creature wearing a cloak. They could not see what was inside the cloak. They could only see that it was pitch black inside the cloak. Shi Mingyue showed the previous video to the humanoid creature. How is it? Are you confident? The humanoid creature laughed a few times. Of course I'm confident. But you have to pay more. Shi Mingyue frowned and her face darkened. Senior brother, you can't be householder Qian, right? The humanoid creature laughed and said, didn't I say that even brothers should settle their accounts clearly? But didn't you already pay more the day before yesterday? That's different. You didn't say that this person was so strong the day before yesterday. Even the space-time duo was easily killed by him. Naturally, you have to pay more to deal with such a person. Okay, I'll pay more. Then how much do you want? Shi Mingyue was still a little impatient. Then let's add another 20 million. Shi Mingyue frowned. 20 million? Why don't you just rob? How can robbing be as fast as making money? Shi Mingyue shook her head. 10 million. The blurry shadow was still laughing. 20 million? 12 million? 20 million? 14 million? 20 million? 15 million? Deal. Shi Mingyue shook her head helplessly. You win every time. The blurry shadow was still laughing. You know that I win, but you still have to bargain. Can't you just say 15 million? I hope you'll find your conscience. Who knew that you don't have a conscience at all? You know that I don't have a conscience, but you still have to bargain. Are you brainless? Let's not talk about this. When do you plan to do it? The blurry shadow in the cloak seemed to sway a few times and said, that depends on the timing, the location, and the people. Okay, it's up to you. You just have to kill that guy within 3 days. If you're willing to pay more, I can kill him within a day. Senior brother, don't go too far. I've always gone too far. No, I can't afford it. Whoosh, you're still so stingy. You're not stingy? You're not stingy. You let me increase it again and again. Whoosh, I'm your senior brother. This is your filial piety to me. On the evening of the third day, after Emosher helped a few students break through, he came to the lakeside again. He was still lying on the recliner, enjoying the evening breeze while drinking tea. It was indescribably comfortable. And at this moment, a black shadow quickly floated over from the distant sky. Chapter 623. Emosher was by the lake, enjoying the evening breeze and drinking tea. A black shadow suddenly flew over from afar. Doomsday sensed it with his draconic will and found that the black shadow was not solid. Instead, it was more like a cloud of mist. Is that a magical dragon? Emosher was slightly surprised. Magical dragons had once appeared in the Myriad Dragons starfield. Those dragons originally had normal bodies, but after being invaded by some kind of magic power, their bodies were reduced to nothingness, leaving only a cloud of black mist around their consciousness. They were called magical dragons. In history, there was once a powerful demonized giant dragon, whose strength had reached the 10th level of super-evolution. Its body was illusory and all energy and physical attacks had no effect on it. In the end, 2 dragons of the time and space attributes worked together to create a black hole and devour it. However, no one knew where the magic power in their bodies came from. Even after millions of years of research, no one had been able to find a clue. Fortunately, the appearance of those demonic dragons was extremely rare. In the entire history, there had only been 5 such occurrences. Who would have thought that one would appear here? The demonized giant dragon came to a place about 50 meters away from Emosher. It floated in the air like a ghost, observing Emosher. A short moment later, a rustling sound came from the center of the magical dragon. It sounded like the rustling of leaves in the wind. Russell, you are an interesting fellow. Emosher didn't mind. That was because he had already seen this person with the eye of the magical dragon. It was a 4th grade super-evolved dragon. The only difference between it and other dragons was that its body was illusory. An ordinary dragon would have a hard time dealing with someone like this. However, Emosher had no such problem. That was because he controlled time with his left hand and space with his right. Even though he had just obtained the time and space attributes not long ago, he had an advantage over this person in terms of grade. It wouldn't take much effort to deal with him. This body of yours is rather interesting. Emosher said with a teasing tone. The dragon laughed once again. Someone paid me to kill you. Emosher tried to plunder his memories but found that he couldn't do so. Thinking about it, it should be possible to plunder only if one's body was corporeal. However, this fellow didn't even have a body, so it was impossible to plunder an illusory cloud of smoke. Let me guess, it's Shi Mingyue? Emosher said slowly. The black smoke continued to let out a clatter of laughter. You really know that good-for-nothing junior brother of mine? I'm starting to like you. However, liking someone is one thing. If he pays me to kill someone, then you can't live. Of course, nothing is absolute in this world. If you are willing to pay a higher price for your life, then I can spare your life. Emosher laughed when he heard this. A shrewd businessman like you is rare in this world. He took money from him and now he wants money from me. With a brain like yours, you can do anything. The black smoke trembled and the cloak behind it also trembled slightly. Whoosh, most people are either scared or angry when they see me. It's the first time I've seen someone praise me. I like you more and more. In view of this, I can give you a 50% discount. If you can take out 100 million dragon coins, then I'll spare your life. Emosher shrugged. Do you think I look like someone who has 100 million dragon coins? The black smoke paused and said, haven't you earned 100 million from that nuisance cram school of yours? Emosher shook his head. That's not a small goal. It's not that easy to make money. The black smoke paused for a moment and said, I can also pay in installments. Why don't you think about it? How do I pay in installments? Emosher asked with a smile. Down payment of 4 million and then give me a monthly payment. A monthly payment of 100,000. How about that? It's quite a good deal, isn't it? Emosher laughed again. Forget it. I can't make 100,000 a month. And the down payment of 4 million is a bit too high. Then how much do you want? I think if you give me 4 million and give me a monthly payment of 100,000, I can consider sparing your life. Emosher said jokingly. The black smoke paused for a moment and trembled a little. It was obvious that he was trembling slightly. Brat, I'm talking business with you seriously, and you dare to play with me? I shrugged again. No, I'm just talking business with you. It seems you want to die. The black shadow said and attacked Emosher. Emosher didn't know much about this black shadow, and he didn't know anything about magic. Of course he wouldn't let it get close to him. At this moment, the chaotic light in his left hand lit up, and the black light in his right hand lit up. The two types of light shone brightly. Soon, the two types of energy gathered in his palms and formed a big ball. This energy ball formed by the intertwining of two types of energy formed a vortex as soon as it appeared. The center of the whirlpool seemed to have an endless suction force. Within a 20-meter radius, all the flowers, trees, and lake water were sucked in. The black shadow that was pouncing over was shocked when he saw this. How is a space-time black hole possible? How can you have time and space at the same time? No. As he screamed, he tried to flee into the distance. But the suction force of the space-time black hole was too strong. He was too fierce when he pounced, and he was only 5 meters away from Emosher. So, he was sucked in almost instantly. The moment before he was sucked in, he screamed in despair, I'll give you the 4 million down payment. Don't. In the next moment he was swallowed by the black hole. Emosher retracted his hands, and the two types of energy returned to his hands from the black hole. The black hole disappeared completely. All of this took a long time to describe, but it happened in just 3 seconds. This kind of magic-possessed energy was hard to deal with. Countless colossal dragons in the 10,000 dragon starfield had died to deal with the 5 energy bodies that had been possessed by demonic powers. In the end, they barely managed to kill them. But this kind of energy had a fatal weakness. They were afraid of black holes. Space-time black holes were their natural nemesis. Even in his wildest dreams, this guy would never have thought that Emosher would possess the time and space attributes. Emosher was happy to have used the space-time black hole to devour him. The time and space attributes were so powerful. It was so easy to kill the energy of a 4th-grade super-evolved dragon. It seemed I had to practice the combination of time and space attributes in the future. Chapter 624. After killing the demon-possessed dragon, Emosher knew that Shermingue would definitely not let him go. But he didn't care at all. One had to know that with his current strength he was basically invincible in the entire Cloud Sea Star. And at that time, Mingue was at most a level 4 super-evolved dragon. Even if all the powerhouses under him were added up, Emosher wouldn't even blink. Of course at that time, Mingue might also invite other extraterrestrial helpers, but Emosher didn't believe that he would be able to invite an ancient dragon. With Emosher's current strength, as long as it wasn't an ancient dragon, even if he couldn't win, it would be easy for him to escape. So after killing the demon-possessed dragon, Emosher returned to his bedroom as usual when it was close to 12 o'clock. System, sign in. He said in his mind. The system's voice quickly sounded. Sign in successful. Sign in reward. Dragon will has evolved into demonic will. Demonic will? Emo was a little surprised. What is this demonic will? Demonic will, a type of psychokinesis, is just that this psychokinesis has a certain killing intent. It can be used to kill dragons, or it can also be used to arouse the evil thoughts in the hearts of enemies. It can be used to kill dragons, or it can also arouse the evil thoughts in the hearts of enemies. Emo was a little excited about this. Now, it was impossible to use dragon will to kill dragons in the 10,000 dragon star field. Because the dragons' bodies were extremely strong, dragon eyes couldn't tear their bodies apart at all. But now, this demonic will could kill dragons. Well, this was equivalent to Emo having a method to kill dragons invisibly. And he could also arouse the evil thoughts in the hearts of others. This was very powerful. In certain situations where it was inconvenient for him to make a move, he could use demonic will to arouse the evil thoughts in the hearts of enemies. Emo entered his Earth space. He tested the power of this demonic will. With his current demonic will, it wouldn't be a problem for him to kill 3 to 5 dragons under normal circumstances. The power wasn't as strong as he had imagined. Thinking about it, it should be because the demonic will wasn't too strong yet. Once its power grew, killing 10,000 dragons with a single thought would no longer be a fantasy. However, this little bit of power was enough for now. Imagine how shocked and terrified the other giant dragons would be when they saw that he could kill a giant dragon with just a thought. However, these were only Emo guesses. In fact, the power of this demonic consciousness still needed to be tested by the WRMS. Where was he going to find a dragon to verify it? The answer was simple. He had killed 2 waves of Minghue's men, so he definitely wouldn't let him go. Sooner or later he would come back to find him. Since that was the case, he might as well take the initiative and meet him now. Thinking of this, Emo moved his mind and appeared over 1,000 kilometers away. After that, he used his maximum speed to fly towards the main city of Cloud Sea Star, Cloud Sea City. Now that Emo had become a 6th-stage super-evolved dragon, his speed was extremely fast. While flying, he tried to add a spatial skill to it. He was not flying but flickering. You saw him appear in front of you, but in the next moment he was already on the horizon. This kind of flickering was different from Emo's previous teleportation. The previous teleportation consumed a lot of energy. But now he was using a spatial skill. This kind of spatial skill consumed very little energy. Moreover, Emo was not proficient in spatial skills. If he was proficient, it was possible for him to reach tens of thousands of kilometers per second. At the same time in Cloud Sea City. At this moment, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled, wind and rain mixed together. In Kong Hai's residence. Kong Hai was discussing the upcoming plan with a few of his strategists. He planned to kill Minghue tonight. And he knew that Minghue was not to be trifled with. Minghue was probably planning to make a move against him in the next few days. After discussing for about half an hour, they finally came up with a plan for tonight. Don't worry, Lord Kong. Tonight's plan is foolproof. As long as our plan is carried out smoothly, then Minghue will definitely die. Kong Hai nodded and said, I believe that after you kill Minghue, Cloud Sea Star will be our world. At that time I will not treat you unfairly. The strategists cupped their fists and said, we will definitely do our best. At the same time in Minghue's residence. Minghue was also discussing the plan with a few strategists. We have received information that Kong Hai is likely to make a move tonight. Lord then we must act as soon as possible and be one step ahead of them. As the saying goes, those who strike first gain the advantage, those who strike later suffer. Lord now is the time for lightning and thunder, the storm is fierce. It is the best time to act. Minghue shook her head slightly. The others were puzzled when they saw this. Does Lord have a plan? Lord if you don't act now, it will be too late for regrets. Minghue still shook her head slightly. I am waiting for someone. Could Lord be waiting for the shadow hidden under the cloak? Minghue nodded. That is my senior brother. With his strength he can deal with a 5th-grade super-evolved dragon. It is not an exaggeration to say that he is the highest combat power on Cloud Sea Star. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air when they heard this. I understand. Lord wants to wait for senior brother to return. With senior brother here there is almost no chance of us losing. Minghue smiled and nodded, you are right. At this point Minghue called out to the door, men? A fully armored guard quickly came in. Lord The guard cupped his fists and greeted. Senior brother is not back yet? No. Minghue looked at the time. It was already around 12:10 at night. Senior brother should have completed the mission by now. With his personality, even if he could not make it back in time, as long as he completed the mission, he would call Sherminghua to ask for the remaining money. Did something go wrong? Sherminghua's heart skipped a beat when he thought of this. He had sent the space-time duo, thinking that it would be easy for them to capture the dragon. Unexpectedly, the space-time duo never returned. Could it be that today was also the same? How was that possible? Sherminghua was much stronger than the space-time duo. Let alone a 5th-grade dragon, even a 6th-grade super-evolved dragon would not have an easy time in front of his senior brother. That guy could not be a 7th-grade super-evolved dragon, could he? Just as he was wondering, a domineering voice came from outside the door. Sherminghua, come out and face your death. Even though it was a stormy night, this voice broke through the sky and the curtain of rain, echoing in the minds of everyone in the mansion. Sherminghua was shocked when he heard this voice. He was a scholar, and scholars were always very smart. That was why he did not go out. Instead, he went to the monitoring room. He looked at the sky through the monitoring room screen. In the rainy night, a figure was floating in the air above his mansion. A bolt of lightning flashed across the sky. The person in the sky was dressed in black and had a cold expression. It was Instructor Mo Sher, whom he had been looking for. Chapter 625. Seeing Mo Sher appear, a trace of fear appeared in Sherminghua's heart. The space-time duo had failed. Her senior apprentice brother had also failed. How was this possible? As far as Sherminghua knew, the strongest person she had ever seen was her senior apprentice brother. An existence that could kill a grade 6 super-evolved dragon with the body of a grade 4 super-evolved dragon. However, her senior apprentice brother had not returned, and this guy had appeared in front of her. Could it be that this guy's level had surpassed that of a grade 6 super-evolved dragon? No, that was impossible. How could he be a grade 6 super-evolved dragon? Sherminghua shook her head in fear. She ordered all her subordinates in the mansion, kill him. Kill him. There were some ruthless people under Sherminghua. Moreover, some of them did not recognize Mo Sher. Therefore, a grade 3 super-evolved dragon with a mohawk shouted, "Don't fight with me. He's mine." To be able to kill this fellow who had trespassed into the first mansion would be another meritorious service. Although Lord Sher's methods were ruthless, he had always been very generous. Killing this guy would definitely give them a lot of rewards. No one else went to fight with the mohawk because the mohawk was a troublemaker. He was Lord Sher's favorite. Who would dare to fight with him? They could only curse in their hearts. This guy got first again. What AF * King Bootlicker. The mohawk had already condensed a pair of wings with energy and flew up. The next moment, a bolt of lightning flashed across the sky. The entire land was illuminated as if it was daytime. Meanwhile, the body of the mohawk that had just flown up was instantly torn in half and fell from the sky. When the surrounding people saw this, they were all shocked. What was going on? They did not see the guy in the sky attack. Moreover, after the mohawk fell to the ground, his body showed no signs of healing. It was important to know that dragons had extremely strong vitality. Their self-healing abilities were also very strong. Even if their bodies were torn in half, they would be able to heal themselves at the fastest speed. However, the cells in the mohawk's body seemed to have died long ago. What was going on? In the midst of the shock, there was a grade 3 super-evolved dragon who was not afraid of death. Like the mohawk, he roared, "How dare you trespass the mansion? I think you don't want to live anymore." Then he stomped his feet on the ground and his body quickly soared into the air. When he was in the air, a layer of yellow energy appeared around his body. Then, the yellow energy in the sky condensed into a giant fist that was 1,000 meters long and 500 meters wide. It smashed down on Mo Sher. Even the rainwater in the sky seemed to have stopped under the impact of this earthy yellow energy fist. This was the killing move of the rank 3 Earth Dragon. However, at this moment, the Earth Attribute Dragon's body was suddenly torn into several pieces. It fell from the sky, and at the same time, the khaki-colored energy fist disappeared. The rain that seemed to have solidified in the sky began to fall again. When several pieces of the Earth Attribute Dragon's corpse fell from the sky and landed at their feet, everyone was once again shocked. This Earth Attribute Giant Dragon was best at defense, and its body was far stronger than other giant dragons, but now it was torn into several pieces in an instant. Just how much power was needed to do that? Moreover, no one saw how the guy in the sky attacked. That fellow kept flapping its blood-red wings, quietly floating in the sky, motionless. They did not see any signs of him attacking at all. However, he killed 2 rank 3 super-evolved giant dragons in an instant. What on earth was going on? Amidst the panic, someone said, "This guy is too strong. We can't deal with him alone. Everyone, let's kill him together." When he said this, the rest of the people roared one after another. They leaped into the sky. Moreover, they did not attack embark in their human forms. Instead, they transformed into their giant dragon forms. In the 10,000 Dragon Star Zone, the giant dragon form was the strongest combat form. Therefore, when giant dragons encountered a powerful enemy, they would usually transform into their giant dragon forms. In just an instant, more than 30 giant dragons appeared. Under the curtain of rain, each of these 30 giant dragons was 10,000 meters long. There were fiery red fire elemental dragons, golden metal elemental dragons, and yellow earth elemental dragons. More than 30 giant dragons almost occupied the entire dark night sky. The sky was filled to the brim. This was definitely the most spectacular scene embark had ever seen. If the people on Earth saw this scene, they would probably be scared to death. In the secret chamber below the ground, Mingyue watched this scene on the screen, and her heart began to beat rapidly. More than 30 giant dragons were basically rank 3 super-evolved giant dragons. If they still could not deal with this guy, then they would have to bring out their strongest secret weapon. This time, embark in the sky finally moved. He did not transform into his giant dragon form. He still maintained his human form. He stretched out his hands slightly. The chaotic time attribute energy appeared in his left hand, and the black space attribute energy appeared in his right hand. Time in his left hand and space in his right. The left and right combined and time and space reversed. The next moment, these 2 attribute energies quickly rose and intertwined in front of him. Then an energy vortex appeared. This energy vortex appeared to be the color of chaos. However, it soon turned black. The next moment, a black hole appeared in the sky. This black hole was about 100 meters in diameter. The moment the black hole appeared, a huge suction force suddenly spread out in all directions. All the rain within 100 kilometers was instantly sucked into this black hole. Crack! A bolt of lightning that spanned across half the sky appeared. However, this bolt of lightning did not have time to illuminate the entire world before it was quickly swallowed by the black hole. When all the giant dragons saw this, their expressions suddenly changed drastically. A black hole that could even swallow lightning. What kind of terrifying existence was this? In horror, these giant dragons quickly fled in all directions. However, before they could escape, their bodies involuntarily moved toward the black hole. A fire giant dragon kept flapping its wings, trying to break free from its shackles. However, its tail was quickly swallowed by the black hole, and the power generated by its flapping wings was far from being able to withstand the suction force of the black hole. It seemed that in just a few seconds, this giant dragon was swallowed by the black hole. One must know that this giant dragon's body length reached 10,000 meters, and its wingspan reached more than 8,000 meters. The diameter of the black hole was only about 100 meters. However, the black hole had no difficulty swallowing this 10,000-meter giant dragon. The rest of the giant dragons originally thought that their bodies were huge and would be stuck in the black hole, and it would be impossible to be completely swallowed. However, when they saw this scene, they suddenly panicked. Chapter 626. Seeing that embark's black hole could actually devour giant dragons, the other giant dragons' expressions changed drastically, and they hurriedly fled in all directions. However, in the blink of an eye, the suction force spread toward them. Although they were giant dragons and had power far beyond the imagination of humans, compared to the suction force of this black hole, their power was so insignificant. The earth attribute giant dragons were sucked in, the metal attribute giant dragons were sucked in, the ice attribute giant dragons were sucked in, and the wood attribute giant dragons were sucked in. In front of this black hole, no giant dragon of any attribute could escape. And not only the giant dragons in the sky, but also the giant dragons on the ground who had not yet transformed into their giant dragon forms were sucked in one after another. They hurriedly struggled to escape. However, all their movement skills, teleportation, and flickering were useless in front of this black hole. Just like in any movie, these people were sucked up high. Then they were swallowed by the black hole. Along with them, the buildings, flowers, and trees on the ground were also sucked up and swallowed. What was a black hole? It was a black hole that swallowed everything. At this time, the black hole created by embark was swallowing everything that could be seen in Mingyue's residence. In the secret underground room, Mingyue saw this scene and his face turned pale. especially when he saw the 5 rockery arranged according to the 5 elements in the residence being sucked up. Under the rockery, 5 hidden pipes with a diameter of more than 10 meters were also sucked up. Shi Mingyue's eyes were filled with horror. Hey, wait. I haven't even taken out the secret weapon and it's already been sucked into the black hole. What the hell is going on? He regretted it, he really regretted it. He regretted provoking this guy in the first place. In fact, he didn't notice Emo Shi at all at first. He heard from his subordinates that Kong Hai went to invite Emo Shi, so he followed suit and invited Emo Shi. He never thought that he would provoke a fiend like this. Kong Hai, so this is your most powerful killing move? You deliberately led me to provoke this fiend. At this time the only thing Shi Mingyue could think of was to escape. Facing such a terrifying guy he could only run. He hurriedly took out a cube that looked like a Rubik's Cube. However, this cube was black in color and it even emitted a faint black glow. One had to know that there was nothing in the world that could emit black light. However, this cube was emitting a black light, which was enough to tell that it was different from the rest. That's right, this was an escape route. It was an escape space created by a giant dragon with spatial attributes. As long as he entered through this entrance, he would appear at the exit in the next moment. The exit was on another nearby planet. Therefore, as long as he activated this escape space, he could quickly leave the Cloud Sea Star. Run away from this fiend. However, when he activated the space and tried to enter it, he was shocked to find that he could not enter it no matter what he did. His face turned even paler. This is impossible. This space can't be fake. What's going on? Naturally, he did not know that Emo Shi had mastered spatial skills. As long as it was within a radius of 100 kilometers, Emo Shi had absolute control over the entire space. Even if you can teleport, some movement skills, and you have some kind of escape device. However, under the absolute control of Emo Shi's space attribute skill, there was no way for him to escape. Just as Shi Mingyue was panicking. Rumble, rumble, a series of loud noises kept coming. The loud noises seemed to be very close. It sounded like the sound of a house collapsing during an earthquake. However, when he looked up, he found that it was not the ceiling above him that was collapsing, but the ceiling that was collapsing. Hundreds of cracks appeared on the roof, so it broke into hundreds and thousands of pieces and flew into the sky. One had to know that his secret room was more than 20 meters from the surface, which meant that the 20-meter thick floor had already shattered into thousands of pieces and was sucked into the black hole. Shi Mingyue looked at all this in disbelief. He used to have the space-time duo under him, but that guy with spatial attributes did not have such terrifying strength. The strength that Emo Shi displayed made him despair. At this time, Shi Mingyue could only use his time attribute skill. The chaotic light on his body lit up. The chaotic energy spread out and quickly occupied a radius of 100 meters. He had to control time. At least control the time within 100 meters of him so that the collapse would slow down a little so that the black hole would slow down. Only then would he have time to escape. However, just as the chaotic light on his body began to spread out, Yi Zichen's eyes lit up. The chaotic light on Emo Shi's body shone brightly. And this chaotic light was 100 times brighter and 100 times stronger than the chaotic light on Shi Mingyue's body. Almost in an instant, it swallowed the chaotic light on Shi Mingyue's body. At this moment, Shi Mingyue's chaotic light did not have any effect at all. Moreover, his body was rapidly wrinkling and aging. Shi Mingyue knew that this was the time attribute at work. He used to play this trick often, accelerating the flow of time on someone's body, letting that person quickly age and eventually die. But now he actually saw the time on his body being accelerated rapidly, and he was aging quickly. His body was no longer full but quickly shriveled up. More and more wrinkles appeared on his body, and soon he looked like an old man in his twilight years. How was this possible? This guy actually knew how to use time attribute skill again. Wasn't he a spatial attribute? How could he know the time attribute? Could it be that he had mastered both the time and space attributes at the same time? God, what kind of guy did he provoke? It was okay to accidentally offend a pervert. No. Shi Mingyue only had time to let out such a cry before his body quickly shriveled up like a dried corpse. His cells lost their activity and his body lost its life. A person who played with time in the palm of his hand was finally played by time. Logically speaking, Shi Mingyue's time skill was better than Emo Shi's. After all, he had been playing with it since he was young, and had been playing with it for tens of thousands of years. However, he had no resistance in front of Emo Shi's time skill at all. This was all because there was a huge gap between his level and Emo Shi's. One had to know that between super-evolved dragons, the difference between each level was like heaven and earth. He was only a level 4 super evolved dragon while Emoshur was level 6. No matter how good his time attribute skill was, it was as insignificant as an ant in front of Emoshur's level suppression. Following that, the black hole continued to devour everything in the Shur family's residence. About 5 minutes later, everything in the Shur family's residence had disappeared. There was only a huge pit with a diameter of 5 kilometers left. Chapter 627. In the rainy night. A bolt of lightning instantly tore through the night sky, illuminating the entire world as if it were daytime. Emoshur was suspended in the air just like that. He did not care that the rain was drenching him. He looked at the 5-kilometer-wide crater on the ground. Emoshur sighed in his heart. The power of this spacetime black hole was so great. Not only did it devour dragons and buildings, but it even devoured the ground. As long as it was within its suction range, it would devour everything. And this was the skill he had just obtained. If he could practice it more, how powerful would it be? Emoshur estimated that with this skill, it would be easy for him to deal with a 9th grade super evolved dragon that was 2 or 3 grades higher. After becoming a super evolved dragon, the difference between each grade was like heaven and earth. Generally speaking, being able to deal with an enemy that was 1 grade higher was already very powerful. Emoshur could now deal with an enemy that was 2 or 3 grades higher. It was obvious how much this black hole had boosted his strength. At this moment, the system's voice rang in Emoshur's mind. Dragon slaying points. 10501000. Level up available. Do you wish to level up now? Emoshur was overjoyed. His dragon slaying points were finally full. Level up. Time required for this level up, 5 minutes. The system prompted again. Emoshur took one last look at the crater below. Seeing that there was nothing left for him to stay in this apocalyptic world, his figure disappeared in a flash. When he reappeared, he was already thousands of kilometers away. No one knew that the bright moon that shook the entire Cloud Sea planet on this rainy night had already disappeared. 10 minutes later, in the lakeside villa, Emoshur's face was filled with joy. I finally reached 7th grade. It had only been 4 months since he came to the 10,000 Dragon Star region, and he had already risen to 6th grade. For those dragons that needed hundreds, thousands, or even thousands of years to advance to 1st grade, Emoshur's speed was no different from sitting on a rocket. He estimated that, at 7th grade, he could easily deal with a 9th grade super evolved dragon. He might even have a chance against a 10th grade super evolved dragon. However, this was not enough to satisfy him. Instead, it made him more eager to continue evolving to become an ancient dragon. In the eyes of others, a 10th grade super evolved dragon was already 10% powerful. Ancient colossal dragons, on the other hand, rarely appeared. However, since Emoshur wanted to stir up trouble in the 10,000 Dragon Star Zone, an ancient dragon would be the minimum requirement. Now that he was already a Tier 7 super evolved colossal dragon, would the ancient colossal dragon still be far away? While Emoshur was getting excited at the lakeside villa, about 10 kilometers away from Shur Mingyue's mansion, a troop of about 3,000 people was passing by silently. Kacha, a bolt of lightning lit up the world as if it were daytime. Through the lightning, one could see that these people were all wearing black cloaks in the rainy night. They were like a group of ghosts. The leader of the group was a tall and sturdy man with a cold face. This person was Kong Hai. Thousands of years ago there had been 3 great wars on Cloud Sea planet. Another time was a war against foreign enemies. Kong Hai had performed exceptionally well in the past few battles. He killed so many enemies that they were terror-stricken. Thus, he built up his reputation and slowly became a loyal subordinate of the Star Lord. Now that the Star Master was dead, he had become the candidate for Planet Master. Originally, he planned to deal with Shur Mingyue in 2 or 3 days, but the weather tonight was too good, so he changed his mind at the last minute and gathered 3,000 people to kill Shur Mingyue. However, just as he and his 3,000 people were moving forward silently, a voice suddenly came from his earpiece. Master Kong, something bad has happened. Shur Mingyue frowned and raised her fist, indicating for everyone to stop. What's wrong? Master Kong, when we came here to investigate, we found that Shur Mingyue's mansion had disappeared. Disappeared? What did that mean? My lord, this is the Shur family's residence. It has completely disappeared, leaving only a huge pit here. When Kong Hai heard this, he was slightly stunned. What was going on? How could the Shur family mansion disappear? In his surprise, he sped up and quickly arrived above the Sher family mansion. At this time, the Sher family mansion was no longer there. In the place where the Sher family mansion used to be, there was only a huge pit with a diameter of 5 kilometers. They used all kinds of technology to investigate if the Sher family was up to something. However, after more than 10 minutes, all the technology found was that the Sher family mansion had completely disappeared. Master Kong, according to the space-time detector, we found that a black hole had appeared here. It's very likely that the Sher family mansion was swallowed by that black hole. As for the 700 people, they were probably swallowed by the black hole as well. A technician reported. Hearing this, the surrounding people felt a wave of shock in their hearts. Although the dragons had studied black holes much more than the people on Earth, it was still very difficult to create a black hole. Even if two dragons with time and space attributes worked together, they would need to reach 100% tacit understanding before they could create a black hole. However, in fact, it was impossible for two people to reach 100% tacit understanding. Even twins were impossible. Theoretically speaking, if one wanted to create a black hole, they would have to possess both the time and space attributes. However, the space attribute was already very rare, and the time attribute was even rarer. In addition, dual attribute dragons were also very rare. With all these factors combined, it was almost impossible for a dual attribute space dragon to create a black hole. Then what was going on? Amidst their astonishment, everyone began to inspect their surroundings. They didn't find any valuable clues. In the end, they could only conclude that the Sher family had provoked someone they shouldn't have. They were destroyed by that person. And currently, in the Nebula Sea Star, he couldn't think of anyone who could destroy the Sher family in such a short time. Then it should be done by an alien force. This way it would save him a lot of trouble. Originally, with more than 3,000 of them against the Sher family, although they would definitely be able to destroy them, there would still be casualties. Now they wouldn't have a single soldier. Shurjia had been destroyed without any effort. Then he could just sit back and enjoy the fruits of others' labor. Of course, he didn't dare to make a move for the time being. What if the powerhouse who destroyed the Sher family was on the Nebula Sea Star? I destroyed the Sher family and you became the Nebula Sea Star. No one would be happy with this. So he waited for another half a month. In this half a month, he used his identity and status to inquire from various channels to see if there was a mysterious powerhouse that suddenly appeared. However, there was no news. It seemed that the powerhouse had already left the heart of the Nebula Sea Star. Thus, Kong Hai began to inherit the position of Nebula Sea Star. He inherited the position of Nebula Sea Star in a very special way. There were 2 chairs left behind his seat. When his subordinates asked why he left these 2 chairs behind, he replied, "The reason why we were able to easily obtain this ruling power was all thanks to these 2 powerhouses. If they return, I am willing to hand over this ruling power to them unconditionally." Chapter 628. In the following days, Mo Sher still went to the Cloud Sea Academy for half a day and then stayed at the lakeside villa to tutor. He seemed to be aloof from worldly affairs. At the same time, the news of Sher Mingyue's destruction had spread throughout the entire Cloud Sea planet. Many forces were very surprised by Sher Mingyue's destruction. Many people were also very surprised. They all knew that there would be a battle between Sher Mingyue and Kong Hai after the sudden death of the Star Lord. Moreover, that battle was likely to be huge and long. Many forces were already prepared to benefit from it. Many people had also moved their stools and were ready to watch the drama unfold in the front row. However, no one expected Sher Mingyue to be destroyed without a sound. It said that someone went to the Sher family mansion to take a look. Everything in the Sher family mansion had disappeared, leaving only a 5-kilometer crater. If you want to talk about big pits, many giant dragons can create them. But you have to know that the Sher family mansion is not an ordinary force. Their mansion must have an extremely powerful defense system around it. Therefore, to be able to break through the defense system of the Sher family and destroy the entire family without a sound, the person must be very powerful. It's very likely to be a grade 7 super evolved dragon. I think it's likely to be grade 8. Therefore, the rumors about the mysterious powerhouse became more and more exaggerated. In the end, it was said that the mysterious powerhouse was a grade 10 super evolved dragon. At the same time, these people also had a deeper understanding of Kong Hai's force. Kong Hai actually has such a powerhouse under him. If it's really a grade 10 super evolved dragon, why would he work for a grade 4 like Kong Hai? That's hard to say. Maybe they're just good friends. Maybe Kong Hai saved him before and he's just returning the favor. Therefore, when we meet Lord Kong Hai in the future, we'd better be respectful. He's still calling him Lord Kong. He's probably going to inherit the position of Star Lord soon. In fact, these people were right. A month later, Kong Hai officially announced that he would inherit the position of Star Lord. In the 10,000 Dragon Star Zone, the position of Star Lord was not officially appointed. It was held by the capable. The previous Star Lord had died, and Kong Hai was the strongest among the remaining forces. Naturally, Kong Hai would be the Star Lord. Moreover, due to his previous achievements, no one had any objections to him taking the position of Star Lord. The entire Cloud Sea planet was talking about the strength of the Void Ocean and the strength of the hidden powerhouse. However, Kong Hai was the only one who knew that there was no hidden expert under him. Even if he ascended to the position of Star Lord, there would always be 2 chairs behind him. If one day those 2 mysterious powerhouses appeared, he would not hesitate to hand over the position of Star Lord to them. He had fought on the battlefield and gone through fire and water, so he valued his life more than anyone else. It wasn't that he was afraid of death, but that he cherished life. Although the position of Star Lord was indeed very tempting, it was not worth mentioning compared to his life. At the same time, he sent people everywhere to seek talents. He had recruited a large number of talents from Cloud Sea Planet. 2 teachers of Ocean of Clouds Academy had already resigned and been recruited by Kong Hai. Of course, Kong Hai had also invited Emosher several times. However, Emosher did not agree. Right now, he only wanted to quietly increase his strength and make a fortune. As for Star Lord, the position of ruler, and the struggle between the various factions, he did not want to get involved. On this day, Emosher finished teaching a few students in his class. Although it was called a class, it was actually Emosher telling the students stories. What kind of class could he teach? He had already taught the students everything he could. Even the second transformation of various dragons was enough for the students to learn for hundreds or even thousands of years. Therefore, every day if Emosher was in a good mood, he would go to the classroom and tell the students a story or 2. His experiences from Earth to the Flaming Origin continent and then to the Myriad Dragon Star region were far beyond the imagination of these dragons. Just 1 or 2 things could make them sigh in amazement. If he was in a bad mood, he would not even go to school. The dean of the academy did not dare to slight him. Moreover, the dean had personally said to him, "If you have something to do one day, you just have to let me know." This was equivalent to telling Emosher that if he wanted to come, he could come. If he did not want to, he just had to let me know. After all, the dean of the academy was only a rank 3 super evolved dragon, and Emosher was at least rank 5 or even rank 6 in the dean's opinion. Facing such an existence, he naturally did not dare to slight him. This morning, Emosher finished telling the story and was about to return to his office. Suddenly, he heard a few students say, "The Star Lord is here, the Star Lord is here, let's go take a look." Star Lord? Didn't the Star Lord die suddenly? Please, now that Lord Kong Hai has become the Star Lord, when did your family get connected to the internet? So it's Star Lord Kong Hai. I admire Lord Kong Hai the most. He fought 3 internal wars and 1 external war. Every time he killed so many enemies that they trembled in fear. He is known as the ever-victorious general. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go take a look. In their excitement, many students ran toward the academy's gate. Emosher shook his head. What a bunch of inexperienced brats. In fact, it wasn't just these students. Many of the academy's instructors also ran toward the gate. After all, even though they were instructors of the Cloud Sea Academy, they had never seen the Star Lord before. Now that they had the chance to see the Star Lord in person, they naturally would not miss it. Even the dean went out to welcome him. He might be a rank 3 super evolved dragon, but the Star Lord was a 4th grade. Naturally, he had to welcome him. Emosher was the only one in the entire academy who was still leisurely strolling along the tree-lined path, slowly walking towards his office. His only thought now was to improve his strength. As for his external living conditions, material conditions and the like, he did not care. Thus, even if he met the Star Lord, he did not care. What did it mean to be strong without desires? This was what it meant to be strong without desires. At the academy's gate, the instructors and students quickly lined up to welcome the arrival of Star Lord Kong Hai. Kong Hai was a rather easygoing person. He greeted the dean, the instructors, and the students. The dean said with a smile, "Star Lord, I didn't know you were coming. Please forgive me for not going out to meet you." Kong Hai waved his hand. It's fine. Everyone go to your own things. I'm here today to visit Mo Sure, Instructor Mo. Everyone was stunned when they heard this. The Star Lord had just been appointed, and he was here to visit Instructor Mo? However, after thinking about it, they understood. Kong Hai had recently been recruiting talents from all over the place. Mo Sure was able to help a student advance to grade 1 in just 10 days. Kong Hai naturally wanted to recruit such a genius. However, Kong Hai only sent one person to invite the other talents. Now he was here to visit Instructor Mo personally. This surprised everyone. Chapter 629. Under everyone's gaze, the new Star Lord Kong Hai arrived in front of Mo Sure's office. Kong Hai's subordinate shouted, "Instructor Mo, the Star Lord is here to visit. Hurry up and welcome him." To everyone around, there was nothing wrong with this shout. After all, Kong Hai was the new Star Lord. Although Mo Sure was powerful and had some special abilities, he was still just an instructor of the academy. It was already an honor for Kong Hai to visit Mo Sure personally. Shouldn't he come out to welcome him? However, the dean had other thoughts. He knew that Mo Sure's strength had most likely reached the 5th or 6th rank Superflower Dragon. Under the premise that strength was respected in the 10,000 Dragon Star Zone, how could Mo Sure go out to welcome the Star Lord? As expected, Mo Sure didn't come out. All the instructors and students around felt that Mo Sure was a bit too much. However, Kong Hai glared at his subordinate. "Who told you to talk too much?" The subordinate immediately nodded and lowered his head. "I'm sorry, Star Lord. Don't apologize to me. Apologize to Instructor Mo." Kong Hai's voice was slightly stern. The subordinate immediately cupped his fists towards Mo Sure's office. "I'm sorry, Instructor Mo. I was too rash and offended you. Please forgive me." Then Kong Hai cupped his fists towards Mo Sure's office. "Instructor Mo, I'm the new Star Lord Kong Hai. Your subordinate has offended you. It's my fault for not disciplining him properly. I apologize to you here." When everyone saw this scene, each and every one of them was extremely shocked. A Star Lord apologizing to an instructor. Was there any justice in this world? Was there any law? One had to know that on a planet the Star Lord was the law, and the Star Lord was the law. The Star Lord's face was greater than the sky. Although the strong were respected, generally speaking, the Star Lord was the strongest person on a planet. Even if the Star Lord made a mistake, he wouldn't admit it. Instead, his subordinate would apologize. Now, Kong Hai was the one who made a mistake. In the end, not only did his subordinate apologize, but he also apologized. Everyone knew that the new Star Lord was thirsty for talent, but there was no need for him to be so humble in front of Instructor Mo. What they didn't know was that Star Lord Kong Hai actually knew something. In Kong Hai's opinion, many things in this world were connected. This was his experience after living for over 10,000 years. In the past, Instructor Mo was able to help a student break through 1 or even 2 levels in 10 days. This was already an existence that subverted everyone's knowledge. Later on, 2 mysterious experts appeared and destroyed the entire Shermingyue residence in a single night. There might be some kind of connection behind this. That was why Kong Hai was so polite to Mo Sure. Mo Sure's voice slowly came from inside the room. "Come in." Mo Sure had already plundered Kong Hai's memories. He knew Kong Hai's true thoughts. It had to be said that this old man who had lived for tens of thousands of years was really something. He could even see the connection between the two. He was indeed amazing. "Instructor Mo, I'll come in then." As Kong Hai spoke, he pushed open Mo Sure's door and entered his office. Behind Kong Hai, his 2 subordinates also wanted to enter, but Kong Hai stopped them with a look. The 2 subordinates immediately stopped in their tracks. They closed the door behind them. Kong Hai entered the room and once again cupped his fists to Mo Sure. "Instructor Mo, I came without an appointment. If I offended you, please forgive me." Mo Sure had a good impression of Kong Hai. Although this person valued power too much. He went to the battlefield to kill enemies and made them tremble in fear. He was also courteous and thirsty for talents. These were all true. At the same time, this person was actually able to guess that he was related to the 2 mysterious experts. He was indeed quite capable. It was just that Kong Hai would never dream that he was the 2 mysterious experts. Mo Sure smiled faintly and said, "I've already said that I like freedom and don't like restrictions. Star-Lord Kong Hai, please go back." When Kong Hai heard this, he was even more certain of his guess. Most people would only call him Star Master when they saw him. Almost no one dared to call him by his name in front of him. Yet, Instructor Mo added his name in front of the Star Lord Kong Hai. It could be seen that either this person was extremely powerful, or the faction behind him was extremely powerful. They were so powerful that they didn't care about his position as the Star Lord. Thinking of this, Kong Hai was secretly shocked. As expected, there was a high possibility that there was a connection between Instructor Mo and those two mysterious experts. Kong Hai continued, "If Instructor Mo isn't willing to work under me, you can stay in the academy. You can do whatever you want. I only ask that you put your name under me. I will give you the highest honorary position. Your monthly benefits will also be far better than others." It could be said that Kong Hai's attitude was very humble. However, Emosher still waved his hand. He couldn't be bothered to talk to Kong Hai anymore. Instead, he directly used Dragon Sense to transmit his voice. "You don't have to keep the 2 seats behind your Star Lord seat. I won't sit there." When Kong Hai heard this, he was slightly stunned. Then his expression changed drastically. He looked at Emosher in disbelief. "The 2 mysterious experts who destroyed the Shi family are..." Emosher shook his head. "Not 2. These words couldn't be clearer. If Kong Hai couldn't even understand the meaning of these words, then he had lived for tens of thousands of years in vain. His knees immediately went soft and he knelt in front of Emosher. "Lord Emo, Senior Emo, I was blind. Please forgive me." He could already tell that the person in front of him was the one who destroyed the Shi family. In other words, he had both the time and space attributes. And one had to know that he could teach students of any other attribute. That meant that he had energy of any other attribute besides time and space. This was no longer something that could be described as a genius. Even a monster was far from enough. If one had to use a word to describe him, then it would be God. It was already very rare for an ordinary giant dragon to master 2 attributes. There had only been a few times in history for someone to master 3 attributes. And this Instructor Mo had mastered almost all attributes. If this wasn't a god, then what was? No wonder his attitude towards him was so. No wonder he didn't care even if he met the Star Lord. Thinking of this, he hurriedly said, "Lord Emo, Senior Emo, if you have any instructions in the future, just say the word. I will not refuse. By the way, if you want the position of Star Lord, I will now announce to everyone that you are the Star Lord of the Cloud Sea." Emosher couldn't help but smile and shake his head. "Do you think I will be interested in a small Star Lord of the Cloud Sea?" Kong Hai thought about it and agreed. Why would a person comparable to a god care about a small Star Lord position? Emosher knew that this guy actually compared him to a god through the public memory. He found it a little funny. But this was also good. Many things on the Cloud Sea would be easy to do in the future. "Kong Hai, I know what you are thinking. I can tell you that I am not a god, but I am definitely more terrifying than you think." Kong Hai was stunned again. Then he lowered his head even more. Sure enough, this person was comparable to a god. He even knew what he was thinking clearly. "But don't expose my identity for the time being." Kong Hai hurriedly replied, "I will definitely not reveal a single word to anyone. If I reveal anything, I will be at your disposal." Emosher nodded in satisfaction and then asked, "Kong Hai, are you willing to be my student?" Chapter 630. "Kong Hai, are you willing to be my disciple?" Emosher asked a question that Kong Hai did not expect. Kong Hai was stunned when he heard this. An instructor of an academy wanted to take him, a Star Lord, as his disciple. If others knew about this, they would think that this instructor was too arrogant. After all, theoretically speaking, a Star Lord was the most powerful being on a planet. Who would have the right to take a Star Lord as their disciple? However, Kong Hai was only stunned for a moment before he asked, "Instructor Mo, if I become your disciple, can I also advance by 1 grade?" "Of course." Emosher nodded slightly. "However, it will take at least 10 days before you can advance by 1 grade. Kong Hai was overjoyed when he heard this. He had originally thought that Instructor Mo's ability to upgrade the giant dragons was only limited to those below super-evolved giant dragons. After all, it was extremely difficult for a super-evolved dragon to advance by 1 grade. If Instructor Mo could really make him, a super-evolved dragon, advance by 1 rank, then he would be no different from a god. Then Kong Hai is willing to be Instructor Mo's disciple. As Kong Hai spoke, he bent down and bowed deeply to Emosher. Emosher slowly raised his hand and gestured for Kong Hai to rise. "Come back in 10 days. I will help you advance by 1 grade. Kong Hai was overjoyed. It was important to note that he had been stuck as a 4th grade super-evolved dragon for thousands of years. How could he not be excited when he had the chance to break through 4th grade and reach 5th grade? There is one thing you need to pay attention to, Emosher said. Our relationship will be kept a secret for now. Yes, Instructor Emo. Kong Hai was slightly surprised. Most people would be more than happy to have a relationship with a Star Lord. However, Instructor Emo kept such a low profile that he did not understand. However, he did not ask too much. After all, it was their first meeting. It would not be good if he asked too much and Instructor Emo would dislike him. Alright, you can go back, Emosher said. Kong Hai nodded. Then I will take my leave. As he spoke, he respectfully left the room. The people outside did not expect their Star Lord to be so respectful in front of Emosher. He did not even dare to turn around as he left. Instead, he retreated step by step. When the crowd outside saw the Star Lord leave, they were all surprised. No matter how much the Star Lord thirsted for talents and treated them with respect, there was no need for him to be so respectful to Teacher Emo. But they couldn't ask too many questions. After Kong Hai left Emosher's room and closed the door, he turned around and said to everyone, if there's nothing else in the future, don't disturb Teacher Emo. His subordinates lowered their heads and said, Yes, Master. When the instructors and students in the academy saw this, they were very surprised. Even if Teacher Emo could help people advance by one stage, there was no need to be so exaggerated. One had to know that in their hearts, Kong Hai was a war hero, an existence that could strike fear into the hearts of his enemies. No matter how powerful Emosher was, he was only a teacher of an academy. In their hearts, Emosher's position was far below Kong Hai's. Now Kong Hai was so respectful to Emosher, which really confused them. After Kong Hai left, Emosher's days became peaceful again. However, the instructors and students in the academy were much more respectful to Emosher than before. After all, if the Star Lord was so respectful to Teacher Emo, how could they not be respectful? The dean didn't dare to assign any work to Emosher. Emosher became even more idle. Other than telling 2 stories to his students every day, he had nothing else to do in the academy. In the blink of an eye, 10 days had passed. Star Lord Kong Hai came to the academy again. But this time he didn't come with great fanfare. He came alone. After all, every time a student went to visit a teacher, he would attract a group of people with great fanfare. That would be too outrageous. Star Lord Kong Hai greeted the dean in advance. After the dean confirmed that Emosher was in the academy, Kong Hai entered the academy. Moreover, he disguised himself a little so many students couldn't recognize him. He came to Emosher's office. Teacher Emo, I'm here, Kong Hai said. Come in. Emosher's voice, which seemed to always be calm and collected, came from inside. Kong Hai entered the room and took out dozens of gifts from a storage space. Teacher Emo, these are my gifts to you. Emosher glanced at them. Most of these things were not of much use to him now. Kong Hai observed Emosher's expression. When he saw that Emosher didn't seem to be interested in these things, he could only make up his mind. Teacher Emo, I also have a lightspeed spaceship. I think with your status you must travel between the stars often. This lightspeed spaceship should be very suitable. Emosher's heart skipped a beat when he heard this. He had seen lightspeed spaceships in the information before. The maximum speed of this spaceship could reach 110 lightspeed. That was equivalent to more than 30,000 kilometers per second. This was much faster than Emosher's current teleportation speed. If he had such a spaceship, he could reach other planets in just 10 minutes or even a few minutes. Thinking of this, he nodded. Well, this is indeed useful to me. Then I'll reluctantly accept it. Kong Hai suddenly felt a pinch in his heart. He had spent a lot of money to buy this lightspeed spaceship. However, Kong Hai was not a stingy person. Moreover, his teacher could help him advance by 1 level today. Compared to the advancement, the spaceship was not worth mentioning. Kong Hai said to Emosher, Teacher, my storage space is too small to fit the spaceship. So you'll have to come with me to get the spaceship later. Emosher nodded. Cultivate once and let me see. Kong Hai Dongji sat down cross-legged and began to cultivate. Emosher had the Void Dragon's 9 transformations. The Void Dragon's 9 transformations was the culmination of all space attribute cultivation methods. Therefore he could easily see through Kong Hai's problem. When you cultivate to the second cycle, use all your energy to attack the Sihai acupoint instantly. Hearing this, Kong Hai muttered in his heart. In the past, his Sihai acupoint had been injured. Every time he cultivated, when the energy passed through the Sihai blood, he would feel a huge pain. Later, an expert gave him some pointers. He said that when the energy passed through the Sihai acupoint, it would be reduced by half. As expected, every time his energy passed through the Sihai acupoint, it would be reduced by half and he could cultivate normally. Why did Teacher Mo want him to use all his energy to attack the Sihai acupoint now? However, since Teacher Mo had already said so, he could only do as he was told. Soon, when he cultivated to the second cycle, he used all his energy to attack the Sihai acupoint. Suddenly, a piercing pain came from his heart. Beads of sweat the size of beans on his forehead instantly poured down. When he cultivated to the 15th cycle, the pain almost made him faint. Fortunately, he had experienced countless battles and suffered countless injuries. He gritted his teeth and endured it. Finally, after 5 minutes, the pain seemed to have reached its peak. Just as he could not take it anymore, boom, a wave of energy seemed to spread out from his limbs and bones. Chapter 631. 631 The Power of a Star-Lord. Star-Lord Kong Hai followed Mo Shi's instructions and cultivated for 81 cycles. The pain in his heart started to spread throughout his body, spreading to his limbs and bones in an instant. Every pore and every cell in his body seemed to be enduring immense pain. It was as if 10,000 ants were gnawing at his flesh, as if 10,000 needles were piercing his heart. Even though Kong Hai was a Star-Lord, even though he had lived for tens of thousands of years and experienced countless pain and agony, even so, he still felt as if he was better off dead than alive under this immense pain. In truth, this pain only lasted for a mere 10 seconds. However, these 10 seconds felt like 10 years to him. One had to admit that Kong Hai was a true man. A true man of iron and blood, tempered through war and blood. Even though he was enduring such immense pain, he gritted his teeth and didn't make a single sound. His consciousness seemed to be fading away amidst this immense pain. Just as he was about to faint from the pain, boom! A loud explosion seemed to ring out from within his body. The next second, energy flowed freely through his meridians like a flood that had broken through a dam. As this energy flowed through his meridians, the pain in every pore of his body finally disappeared. Every cell in his body seemed to be breathing happily. An indescribable sense of comfort spread throughout his body. He had experienced this feeling many times before. He only felt this when he was advancing. He opened his eyes. His entire body was drenched. Even the ground beneath him was covered in a layer of water. It was enough to see how much pain he had just endured. In contrast to the immense pain he had just experienced was the immense pleasure he felt now. He had finally advanced to 5th grade Super Evolved Dragon. He hadn't advanced for tens of thousands of years. He had thought that he would never be able to advance even if he lived for another 10,000 years. With his talent, reaching 4th grade Super Evolved Dragon was the limit for him. Who would have thought that he would advance by a grade in just 5 minutes under Instructor Mo's guidance? Instructor Mo was truly a god. At the thought of this, Kong Hai hurriedly got up and knelt before Mo Shi. I'm afraid I won't be able to repay Instructor Mo's kindness in this lifetime. If Instructor Mo needs my help in the future, feel free to ask. Kong Hai will not refuse. After becoming a super evolved giant dragon, every level up was equivalent to an extra 10,000 years of lifespan. Therefore, Mo Shi not only allowed him to advance by one level, but also allowed him to live for another 10,000 years. How could he repay such a great favor? Mo Shi smiled and shook his head. There will be a time when you can repay me. Kong Hai heard this. He nodded heavily. Teacher Mo, if there's anything I can use you for, Kong Hai will definitely not refuse. At this point, Kong Hai's loyalty to Mo Shi could be said to be 100%. After all, Kong Hai was the lord of a planet. If an interstellar war broke out, how many dragons would die under Kong Hai's command? And these dragons were all counted into Mo Shi's dragon-slaying value. Just thinking about it made him King happy. If a war broke out, wouldn't he be able to evolve into a rank 10 super evolved colossal dragon in minutes? Perhaps it would be easy for the ancient dragons as well. At the same time, Mo Shi also thought of a way to increase his strength quickly. He said to Kong Hai, if there are people in your army who want to improve their strength, tell them to come over. Just like the others before, I guarantee that each of them will be able to advance by one level within 10 days. Although Mo Shi already had many students now, these students were basically still studying in the academy. None of them could really join the army. Even the 6th grade students were still a few years away from graduation. It would take a few more years for them to quickly develop their combat strength and increase their dragon-slaying value. Therefore, Mo Shi thought of the colossal dragons in the army. Although there hadn't been any major wars in the Cloud Sea Star in the past 2 years, small rebellions kept happening, and there were also dragon bandits and the like. Therefore the army had been very busy. If those colossal dragons in the army became his disciples, then he would be able to earn dragon slaying value every day. Kong Hai nodded. Teacher Emo, I'll ask my Imperial Guards to come over tomorrow. Emo sure shook his head. There's no need for the Imperial Guards for now. I think those soldiers who are fighting on the front lines every day need to improve their strength as soon as possible. This way their lives will be more secure. Kong Hai thought to himself, not only does a Magister have powerful strength, but he also has a compassionate heart. No wonder he has such strength while I'm only the Lord of a Star. Yes, then I'll order the soldiers on the Eastern Front to come back in batches so that you can improve your strength. Now, there are large and small battles breaking out on the Eastern Front almost every day. They need to improve their strength the most. Emosure nodded, then slowly waved his hand. Okay, go. On the way back, Kong Hai issued an order. Ask the soldiers on the Eastern Front to come back in batches to accept Teacher Mo's favor and improve their strength. On the Cloud Sea Star, the government wasn't the only power. In addition to the government, there were also some Hulong. These Hulong were originally the masters of the Cloud Sea Star. They were the natives of the Cloud Sea Star. Since the government sent colossal dragons to the Cloud Sea Star tens of thousands of years ago, these Hulong's status on the Cloud Sea Star was not as good as before. They were even treated as slaves. Therefore, many Hulong began to resist. Of course, their resistance was quickly suppressed by the Star Lord. After several major wars, these Hulong had suffered countless casualties. However, they didn't accept their fate. Instead, they escaped into the forest and fought guerrilla warfare with the government. Because the Cloud Sea Star was huge and the government's army was limited, it was impossible to completely destroy them. Therefore, the Star Lord ordered the colossal dragons to build a defense line in the east, south, west, and north. They were called the East, South, West, and North lines. Nowadays, the Hulong on the South, West, and North lines rarely showed up. Only the Hulong on the Eastern Front were still active and would attack the colossal dragons on the Eastern Front from time to time. At the Eastern Front. When the general guarding the Eastern Front saw the message from the Star Lord, he couldn't help but frown. The Eastern Front was so busy and they were short on manpower. Where would they find the time to send people back to improve their strength? Wasn't the so-called improvement of strength just training? They were going to kill Hulong every day. Why would they need training? This new Star Lord was King Bulsh Ting. But there was no other way. Since it was the Star Lord's order, he could only send some people back first. Therefore he sent more than 1,000 soldiers to Cloud Sea City. The Star Lord had ordered at least 5,000 people in each batch, but he only sent 1,000. It was obvious that he was dissatisfied with the Star Lord. At the same time, he thought that since he was guarding the Eastern Front, no matter how dissatisfied the Star Lord was with him, the Star Lord wouldn't dare to touch him. That was why he was so brazen. About 2 days later, these soldiers arrived at Cloud Sea City. At the same time, the Star Lord Kong Hai invited Emosure over. When these soldiers saw that Kong Hai was so respectful to Emosure, they were a little surprised. Who exactly was this person? Soon, those who were well-informed found out that Emosure was just a teacher in an academy. They couldn't help but feel disdain. Since when did a teacher in an academy dare to show off in front of the Star Lord? Chapter 632. There was a huge martial arts arena in Cloud Sea City. The martial arts practice field was 10 kilometers long and 10 kilometers wide. This was the official martial arts arena. Usually, when there were some major celebrations or competitions between dragons, it would be held in this arena. Now, the 1,000 soldiers were lined up neatly on the arena. Of course, since they were not in their dragon forms, the 1,000 of them looked very small when standing on this huge arena. Star Lord Kong Hai lectured these 1,000 people. Do you want to improve your strength? Do you want to become stronger in 10 days? Now is your chance. You must seize this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The soldiers below were all silent. Kong Hai was slightly displeased. Although Kong Hai was once called the god of war and a hero by them, a series of policies implemented by Kong Hai since he became the Star Lord were disadvantageous to the army. Therefore they were a little disgusted. In fact, Kong Hai had been in the army for thousands of years and knew that the dragon army had many bad habits. These policies he implemented were just to make the army change these bad habits and win the hearts of the people. However, this made the veterans who had been in the army for thousands or even tens of thousands of years very uncomfortable. Therefore they were naturally dissatisfied with Kong Hai. Kong Hai was already well aware of this, but he did not care. He still had to reform what was needed. At this moment, a figure quickly flew over from the distant horizon. When he arrived in front of Kong Hai, he slowly landed. Kong Hai cupped his fist to the person and said, "Mentor Mo, you're here." Mo Shi's subordinates were surprised to see their Star Lord being so respectful to a mentor of an academy. At the same time, they were also disdainful. Their disdain was not only for Kong Hai but also for Mo Shi. What ability did this little mentor have to make Kong Hai so respectful? Kong Hai was too arrogant. He was actually so respectful to a mentor of the academy. Kong Hai stretched out his hand to the soldiers and said to Mo Shi, "Mentor Mo, you may begin." Mo Shi nodded. Then he said to the 1,000 soldiers, "I know what you're thinking. A mere mentor of the academy is being so respectful to the Star Lord. What a scandal. You're very disdainful of me and the Star Lord." As soon as he said that, the soldiers below looked at each other. Could this guy read minds? At the same time, they were secretly shocked. If they had such disdain for the Star Lord, how would the Star Lord deal with them? As expected, Star Lord Kong Hai's face darkened. "I can understand your disdain for me, but you must respect Mentor Mo 100%. If I find out who disrespects Mentor Mo, you know what will happen to you." Hearing this, the soldiers became even more curious. What was Teacher Mo's identity? The Master of Stars would rather be looked down upon than be looked down upon by others. Mo Shi glanced at the 1,000 plus people. "Now I'll teach you a spell. It's very simple. Follow me and learn for 10 days. After 10 days, I guarantee that you will break through to the First Order." Hearing Mo Shi's words, none of the soldiers believed him. They had been on the battlefield for many years. They only believed in life and death and did not believe in anything else. They had been cultivating for so many years without being able to level up. Now this guy was actually boasting that he could help all of them level up in 10 days. If this wasn't bragging, then what was? Mo Shi continued, "What I want to teach you is very simple." As he spoke, he took out 1,000 cards that he had asked his students to make. The cards were none other than the multiplication table. There was no multiplication table in the 10,000 Dragon Star Zone. Mo Shi demonstrated and recited it. 1 equals 1, 1 equals 2, 1 equals 3, 1 equals 4. 9 The dragons were dumbfounded by this scene. Dragons had a long lifespan and their memories were not bad. It was not difficult for them to memorize so many multiplication tables. What surprised them was, what was this so-called mentor doing? You said you wanted to help us improve our strength, but in the end you had to memorize this damn thing. Even Star Lord Kong Hai was dumbfounded. What was the mentor doing? He didn't teach me like this when he taught me before. However, Kong Hai quickly calmed himself down. Instructor Mo was a senior expert. His thoughts were not something that Kong Hai could fathom. Actually, Mo Shi's thoughts were very simple. If he taught all these dragons the 9 dragon transformations one by one, it would be a waste of time. He might as well teach them the multiplication table. It would save time and effort. Anyway, the system did not teach the dragons anything. As long as he taught them a random skill for 10 days, they would be recognized by the system as his disciple. Then, Mo Shi placed the 1,000 multiplication tables on the stone platform in front of them and asked the dragons to come and take them. Although the dragon warriors were unwilling, they still came forward to take them. After all, the Star Lord was standing there. Although they were dissatisfied, they did not dare to disobey. After all the dragons had taken the multiplication tables, Kong Hai said, "Start reading now." The giant dragons looked at each other. Although they felt embarrassed, they still began to read it one after another. Thus, a scene like this appeared in the square. 1,000 dragon warriors stood in a square formation and chanted the multiplication formula in unison. 1 equals 1, 1 equals 2, 1 equals 3, 9 After all the dragons finished reading, Mo Shi nodded. "Very good. Now you can go back and recite the multiplication table by yourselves. I'll give you 10 days. After 10 days, those who have recited it can come here to find me. I'll help each of you improve by 1 level. Of course, this is voluntary. If you don't want to recite it or improve your strength, you don't have to come. But I have to remind you that you only have 1 chance. If you miss this chance, I won't help any of you improve your strength." The dragons scratched their heads in confusion. Seeing that they were still not dispersing, Kong Hai shouted, "Disperse." After all, he was once a soldier. Ordinary people could not understand his aura. The soldiers dispersed and left one after another under his roar. Kong Hai waited for those baffled soldiers to leave before he turned to Emo Shi and asked expectantly, "Instructor Emo, what did you ask them to recite just now? Can you teach me?" He looked as eager as Sun Wukong in the cave of the slanting moon and 3 stars, asking Patriarch Subhuti for the method of immortality. Emo Shi smiled faintly and shook his head. Everyone has their own cultivation method. You can't learn theirs. Kong Hai was a little anxious. No, instructor. There are so many of them. If they can learn mine, why can't they? Emo Shi smiled but did not answer. He left. Kong Hai was left standing there in a daze. He looked in the direction where the soldiers had dispersed, and his heart was filled with envy for those soldiers. That multiplication table must be a very powerful cultivation method or skill. Why can't Instructor Emo teach me? Chapter 633. That night after the soldiers returned home. Some went to the restaurant to drink, some went to visit relatives and friends they had not seen in a long time. Some went to the brothels to admire the flowers. They had been on the Eastern Front for so long, fighting to the death every day, and rarely had time to enjoy themselves. This time they had finally arrived at Cloud Sea City, so they had to have fun. Obviously, most of the soldiers did not take Emo Shi's words seriously. Only a very small number of soldiers really memorized the multiplication formula. In a military tent, a soldier with a dull face was reciting the multiplication formula. 4728, 5735, 67, 67, 40. A soldier outside who had just returned from the brothels could not help but laugh when he saw this. "Shuang Feng, it's fine that you're usually so dumb, but today you're actually memorizing this troublesome multiplication formula. I really don't know how someone as dull as you survived on the Eastern Front until now. I Liaoshan really admire you." Shuang Feng smiled bitterly and said, "I'm usually not good at anything and I'm always looked down on. This time I finally have a chance to improve my strength, so of course I have to seize it." "Aha, you really believe in dullards." Liaoshan laughed as he shook his head and went to sleep in his tent. Shuang Feng watched Liaoshan enter the tent and stared at him for a moment. Then he lowered his head, opened the multiplication formula table and continued to recite. 4728, 5735, 67, 67, 40. There were less than 50 people who really memorized the multiplication formula like Shuang Feng. 10 days was not a long time, but it was not short either. In these 10 days, Shuang Feng and the other 40 people had already memorized the multiplication formula. They could even recite it backwards. They were all giant dragons who were usually weak in the army and were not valued. The other dragons did not take the multiplication formula seriously at all. They just ate, drank, and played every day. When Kong Hai saw this, he cursed in his heart. The multiplication formula was such a profound technique, and the teacher could teach it to these guys, but they did not cherish it. He wanted to force these soldiers to learn it, but since the teacher said that it was up to them whether they learned it or not, he could not go against the teacher's wishes. At noon on the 10th day on the huge training field, the more than 40 soldiers who had memorized the multiplication formula couldn't wait any longer. They lined up neatly and waited for Teacher Emo. As for the other warriors, they were still indulging in debauchery. Anyway, that Teacher Emo had said that it was up to them whether they wanted to learn or not. It didn't matter if they didn't want to learn. At noon, Emo Shi finally appeared. Kong Hai followed closely behind Emo Shi. When Kong Hai saw that there were less than 50 people, he was instantly enraged. These little bastards are really rebelling against them. I'll go and get them all. After all, Kong Hai had been in the army for thousands of years. In his anger, all the vulgar words came out. Emo Shi waved his hand and said faintly, "There's no need for that. This matter was originally voluntary. They were not forced to do it." Kong Hai could only nod. "Yes, Instructor Emo." All the soldiers were looking at Emo Shi on the stage expectantly. Emo Shi jumped off the stage and came in front of one of the soldiers. "What's your name?" "Shuang Feng. Li Shuang Feng." The soldier was so nervous that he stuttered a little. Emo Shi said with an amiable smile, "Shuang Feng, let me see how you do it." Shuang Feng immediately sat down cross-legged and began to circulate the energy in his body. A moment later he completed 81 circulations. Emo Shi nodded. "Overall it's not bad. However, when the energy passes through the Tianwei point, you must rush through it slowly. Otherwise, the impact of the energy on the Tianwei point will be too great. The effect of the cultivation will be greatly reduced. Try to cultivate again. Remember, you must slow down when you pass through the Tianwei point. The soldier was very confused. In the past, when his father taught him how to cultivate, he said that when passing through the Tianwei point, he must rush through it quickly to stimulate the cells and meridians in his body. Why was this teacher completely different from what his father said? However, when he saw how respectful the Star Master was to this teacher, he didn't dare to have any more doubts. In any case, he didn't get much out of his normal cultivation. He was only a rank 2 evolved dragon. Moreover, it seemed that he had no hope of breaking through to rank 2 in this lifetime. He might as well try this method. Thinking of this, he began to cultivate according to Mo Shi's instructions. When the energy passed through the Tianwei point, he didn't rush through it violently like before. Instead, he slowed it down. Just this time, he suddenly felt a sense of comfort in his limbs and bones that he hadn't felt before. After 2 circulations, he had an answer to his doubts. Sure enough, this teacher was right. After 81 circulations, he suddenly felt a surge of energy rushing through his body. All the meridians in his body had an indescribable sense of comfort. It was also at this time that the energy in his body suddenly spread in all directions. Fortunately, after thousands of years of cultivation, he was very experienced in controlling energy. He didn't let the energy spread out of his body. Then a second time, a third time. The energy spread out 3 times in a row. Even the surrounding soldiers widened their eyes in shock. Although Shuangfeng's energy didn't spread out of his body, they could feel the impact of the energy. In the past, this kind of energy impact would only happen when breaking through. Shuangfeng had broken through, and he had broken through 3 ranks in a row. Sure enough, Shuangfeng opened his eyes, and his eyes shone brightly. He looked at himself in disbelief, from his feet to his hands, and then from his hands to his feet. His tone was extremely excited. "Teacher Mo, I broke through 3 ranks in a row." Hiss, hiss, hiss. The sound of the soldiers drawing in a breath of cold air could be heard one after another. Shuangfeng hadn't been able to advance a single grade in the past 1,000 years. Now he had advanced 3 grades in just a short 5 minutes of cultivation. This was too exaggerated. Amidst the shock, these soldiers were filled with anticipation. Fortunately, they didn't indulge in debauchery like the other soldiers. Fortunately, they seized this opportunity. Mo Shi nodded at Shuangfeng, then looked at another soldier. Next. Soon, a few hours later, all of the 40-odd warriors had leveled up. The least advanced by 2 grades, and the most advanced by 4 grades. Kong Hai, who was watching from the side, was dumbfounded. Advancing to 4th grade in a single cultivation session. This was even more terrifying than the students of the academy. However, after some thought, he understood the reason behind this. These soldiers had been cultivating for a much longer time than the students of the academy. Most of them had been cultivating for at least 1,000 years. The energy accumulated in their bodies, as well as the tempering of their cells and meridians, was naturally not something that the students could compare to. With Teacher Mo's guidance, their breakthroughs had come naturally. Advancing to 4th grade was unexpected, but it was also within reason. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.